Chapter 947. As demon sage Lu Yuan spat out white light, he too pounced towards the wondrous Shura tree. Ancestral crocodile sage spat out a black mist that enveloped his entire body before charging towards the wondrous Shura tree. Uao Dragon King's body shimmered like white jade as wisps of smoke appeared and swept towards the wondrous Shura tree. The Tsangtian Dao Jian hesitated for a moment before letting out a sigh. It too transformed into a surging sword ray that fell from the heavens like a golden river crashing down towards the wondrous Shura tree. The wondrous Shura tree's leaves trembled violently under the combined attack of the four mighty ones. The dark golden light converged and almost solidified to block the wave of attacks. The wondrous Shura tree had not only an indestructible foundation, but it had also been refined by Lin Feng's Taoist arts, incorporating the art of yin and yang creation and destruction, mystic heavenly flight, and celestial light of polarity into it. Its defense was much stronger than the wondrous Shura tree's astral soul fusion realm. Facing the joint attack of the great sage Liyuan and the other three experts, even if it was the great sage Salo Iron Tree or the pure-blooded black tortoise of the same realm, they would still find it hard to defend themselves with all their strength. But Lin Feng's Salo Wonder Tree forcefully blocked the attack of the three demons, not yielding an inch. Uao Dragon King and the others did not continue to wrestle with the wondrous Shura tree after their first attack. Instead, they flew away and once again rushed towards the dimensional rift. Their actions were both real and fake, catching everyone off guard. They could already tell that while the wondrous Shura tree was strong, it was not strong enough to protect Wang Lin and the others and seal off the dimensional rift at the same time. Therefore, the three beasts' actions combined both fake and real. It would be best if they could break through the wondrous Shura tree's defenses, but if they could not, they would take advantage of the wondrous Shura tree's defense to break through the dimensional rift. Sha Luo Xian sat expressionlessly on top of a giant tree. His eyes flickered with divine light, and a dark golden light began to emanate from his eyes. It expanded at a speed no slower than the great sage Lu Yuan and Uao Dragon King. Once again, he strengthened the barrier at the dimensional passageway, trapping the enemies in this foreign dimension. The wondrous sage and the others looked at each other, their expressions dark and gloomy. The magical power of the wondrous Shaluo tree had once again exceeded their expectations. The dark golden radiance was released at will, spreading and gathering in an instant. Its speed was not any slower than their flying speed, making it difficult for them to take advantage of it. The wondrous Shura banner and Zhuge presence once again exceeded their expectations. The wondrous Shura tree's power. The wondrous Shura tree's defense was no slower than the wondrous Shura tree. More accurately, the Shura Tian sage, the Shura, and the Zhuge tree, Zhan, divine banner, wood sage, and the saint, Shura saint, Tian, god, Shura, and demon tree might, black, Chen, sage, Shan, god, dragon Shura, and Shura the tree, Shman god, family Ao Shura, one, son, Tian god, of might and Ao long might, if long was one. The wondrous swordsmen, however, were in a difficult position. The wondrous swordsmen were caught between a rock and a hard place. They were either returned to void or Tao integration stage mighty figures who had fused their star souls into one. Any one of them was a mighty figure who had dominated the heaven primal world for many years. Now that they were trapped in this dimension, they felt as if they were sitting ducks. Of course, even if Wang Lin and the others managed to refine the golem and the carrying heaven queen ant and launch a counterattack, they might not be able to kill the four of them. However, this feeling of being stuck between a rock and a hard place was extremely depressing. Lin Feng's avatar was still nowhere to be seen. His mind wandered as he looked at the scene unfolding before him. Looking at the time, it should be almost time, right? Are they waiting for an opportunity, or do they have other plans? Compared to the absent-minded Lin Feng and the vexed great sage Lu Yuan and the others on Xianmen Tianzong's side were a lot more relaxed. Wang Lin transformed into the netherworld Tai Chi diagram and enveloped the jet-black mountain peak and the chains that bound it. Shi Tianhao, on the other hand, did not even manifest his primordial spirit avatar. He was leisurely refining the yellow heaven bell. At the same time, he was still in the mood to smile at Zhuge Zhan. Mr. Zhuge's escape technique is not inferior to the Taishu Temple's heaven ascension technique. At this moment, Zhuge Zhan only had his daughter, Zhuge Wanqiu, in his eyes. He kept asking about her well-being and listening to her talk about her experiences growing up in Xianmen Tianzong, as well as many interesting things. Even the most trivial matters could make this resourceful father listen with great interest and smile from ear to ear. Hearing Shi Tianhao's words, he turned around and smiled. I've made a fool of myself in front of everyone. However, out of all the techniques that I know, not mentioning the others, my escape technique is definitely something I can show you. He cultivated the Tao of the divine light of the sun. The divine light of the sun was the foundation of all techniques, and it gave rise to many transformations. The divine light of the sun was powerful on its own, and through its transformations, it could become a rainbow, achieving the escape technique of rainbow flight. The speed was extremely fast, and it was not inferior to the famous escape techniques of Taishu Temple's Heaven Ascension Technique, Elysium's Aquamarine Heaven Escape Technique, and Mount Shu's Shaozi Sword. Turning into a rainbow, one could obtain the seven-colored illusory realm and seven-colored river, and the Tao of transformation. Just now, Zhuge Zhan used this technique to break Yuao Dragon King's innate technique. Even though Yuao Dragon King was heavily injured, this technique was still quite extraordinary. Other than spells and techniques, the divine light of the sun could also be used to refine one's physique. From this, the body refining technique of the sun form refining technique and the martial arts technique of the solar divine fist were derived. The orthodoxy that Zhuge Zhan obtained from the radiant light sect was relatively complete. Even though there were many flaws, after many years of exploration and cultivation, he had gradually formed an independent and complete system of Tao techniques. From the aspect of Tao techniques, it was no longer difficult for him to establish his own sect. However, Zhuge Zhan never had such thoughts. He was happy to be a free and unfettered rogue cultivator. The only people that he cared about were his relatives, and from what he saw now, it was his precious daughter, Zhuge Wanqiu. Zhuge Wanqiu pulled Zhuge Zhan aside and introduced Yang Qing, Li Yuanfang, and Luo Qinggu one by one. Even Chu Yang, Huang Zhenting, Han Yang, and Tan Yunqing were not left out. Zhuge Zhan sighed. There is no sun or moon in the void battlefield. The flow of time is unpredictable. Thank you for taking care of my daughter all these years. He was originally a wild person. The strength that Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, and Shaluo Miaoshu displayed was admirable. From this, he knew that the master of the Xianmen Gate, Lin Feng, would only be stronger, which made him feel inferior. However, this did not affect his attitude towards others. 100 years ago, for the sake of his eldest son, even though he knew that he was alone, he still dared to single-handedly wreak havoc in the Tempest Temple. What made Zhuge Zhan grateful was that his daughter had been taught and cared for by Lin Feng and his disciple all these years. She grew up safely and gradually became more capable. Shi Tianhao smiled. Fortunately, I did not mislead her. As he conversed with Zhuge Zhan, he also used the bell hammer to continuously knock on the yellow heaven bell, channeling mana into it. After striking the bell for 49 times, a light finally flashed on the Huang Tian bell, turning into a white-haired, long-bearded old man wearing a golden robe. He looked at Shi Tianhao and said, I am Huang Zhonggong. Who are you? Why do you have this old man's bell hammer? Shi Tianhao smiled. This was given to me by my teacher. If you have anything to say, you can follow me back to the mountain and ask my teacher directly. I wonder if you are willing to follow me? Huang Zhonggong looked at Shi Tianhao. What if I say I am not willing? Shi Tianhao said matter-of-factly, knock him out and drag him away. Huang Zhonggong smiled. Just as I expected. You are only at the level of primordial spirit incarnation to have such supernatural power. No wonder you are so arrogant. Shi Tianhao smiled, pointing at the Shentian God-sealing flag and Shaluo wondrous tree. Looking at you, I am afraid you have reached the level of incarnation for a long time, but you are stuck in a bottleneck and cannot break through. Following me is not necessarily a bad way. Huang Zhonggong nodded. Fine, fine. Shi Tianhao laughed, his hands changing gestures continuously, and thousands of spells were sent into the yellow heaven bell. A layer of misty purple light suddenly appeared on the surface of the yellow heaven bell. Such an exquisite power. Following him to cultivate is indeed a good way. Huang Zhonggong was easygoing, and he did not have any grudges or conflicts with Shi Tianhao. Shi Tianhao had refined the yellow heaven bell hammer long ago, so Huang Zhonggong was somewhat close to him. On the other side, Wang Lin's netherworld Tai Chi diagram had swallowed the whole mountain and the chain that the carrying ants had turned into. Everyone was contained in Wang Lin's primordial spirit at the moment, so they were not surprised. Silently, they watched the black mountain gradually change shape. Zhuge Zhan looked at this scene with interest. With his character, if it were someone else in front of him, he would definitely not be polite to such an ownerless treasure, and he would fight for it. However, since it was his daughter's senior, he naturally did not have such thoughts. Instead, he was quite interested in the power of Taoism displayed by Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, and the others. Just by watching from the side, he felt that he had gained a lot. Under Wang Lin's refinement, the black mountain gradually turned into a huge three-eyed giant. Its whole body was black, and it exuded an extremely contradictory aura, as if it was chaos at the beginning of the universe. It was a primitive state without any impurities, but it contained the fierceness and brutality of natural disasters and the destruction of the world. This was the original appearance of the Avicii demon statue. The Avicii demon statue's three eyes faintly flashed with red light, as if there was a strong sleeping will that was slowly awakening. However, when it was swept by the netherworld Tai Chi diagram, the red light disappeared, and the third eye between the giant's eyebrows also gradually disappeared. In its place was a Tai Chi diagram that constantly rotated with yin and yang merging. The chain that the carrying ants had turned into, which was originally wrapped around the Avicii demon statue, was now gradually absorbed into the demon statue's body. The carrying ants, who had been suppressed under the Black Mountain, regained freedom, but it was only a shell. The Avicii demon's statue pointed with its finger, and a stream of light flew out of the carrying ant's body. It was where the essence of qi and blood was. Shi Tianhao smiled. "Third senior brother, thank you." After saying that, the primordial spirit incarnation of the primordial Tai Chi diagram appeared. In the center of the rotating Tai Chi diagram, a huge furnace opened, and his body sat cross-legged in the furnace with his eyes closed. Under Wang Lin's control, the essence of carrying ant's body, qi and blood fell into the furnace where Shi Tianhao's body was. Then, the furnace closed, and the primordial Tai Chi diagram spun rapidly. Following that, the carrying ant's body also rushed into the Avicii demon statue. The jet-black giant's body began to tremble violently, and an even more violent power spread to the surroundings, causing the netherworld Tai Chi diagram formed by Wang Lin's Yuan Shun to also tremble. Outside, Great Sage Lu Yuan, Yuao Dragon King, and the others looked at the netherworld Tai Chi diagram that was spinning faster and faster under the protection of the Salo Wonder Tree. They had a bad premonition in their hearts. Chapter 948. Jian Tengtian, Yuao Dragon King, Ancestral Crocodile Sage, and Lu Yuan were all staring at the spinning yin-yang diagram below the wondrous Shura tree. As the cultivator who had lived in this alternate dimension for the longest time, Lu Yuan was the clearest about what was happening. He knew that Wang Lin was currently refining the black mountain formed by the progenitor demon sect elder and the bodies of the carrying heaven ants. Looking at the situation, Wang Lin was clearly trying to fuse the body of a return to void stage cultivator with the bodies of the carrying heaven ants to create a powerful clone. Not only was the clone extremely powerful, but because of the carrying heaven ants, it could also split into tens of thousands of copies. Tens of thousands of copies could be split into tens of thousands of copies. Lu Yuan was enraged at the thought that all of this should have belonged to him, but because of the wondrous Shura tree, he was unable to stop it and could only watch as it happened. Yuao Dragon King also sighed in his heart and turned to Ancestral Crocodile Sage. "I've dragged you into this." Ancestral Crocodile Sage shook his head with a sinister expression. "If I can leave this place alive today, I will definitely tear everyone in Xianmen Tianzong to shreds." Songtian Dao Jian's sword spirit Jian Songtian was also silent as he stared at the wondrous Shura tree and the yin-yang diagram formed by Wang Lin's Yuan Xin. The nine heavens sword of his dreams was right in front of him, but it was so close yet so far away. He had offended Wang Lin and the others, and there would be endless troubles in the future. Jian Songtian did not regret what he had done. It was difficult to reach the great Tao, but even if there was a sliver of hope, he had to fight for it with all his might. He hoped for success, but he also had to bear the risk of failure. It seemed like a very short time, but it also seemed like a very long time. The yin-yang diagram's rotation gradually slowed down, but the force of rotation from the center of the yin-yang diagram became more and more powerful. It was like a bottomless abyss, a black hole that pulled everything around it toward the center. The magnetic spirit chi of heaven and earth continued to gather toward the center of the yin-yang diagram. It was like a giant whirlpool, and at this moment, in the depths of the whirlpool, a powerful and terrifying aura was born. At first, it was only a wisp, but it became thicker and thicker. In the end, it was as if the heavens and the earth were falling apart. It was as if the most evil and terrifying thing in the world was being nurtured at the center of the vortex. Finally, the vast netherworld Tai Chi diagram stopped spinning completely. In the center of the vortex, an extremely huge figure slowly rose from it, and an endless and terrifying aura of disaster emanated from his body. Great Sage Lu Yuan's pupils constricted. He saw that the figure's facial features were exactly the same as Wang Lin's. He was 30,000 meters tall, and his head was in the sky, and his feet were on the ground. This was the doppelganger that Wang Lin had refined into the Avicii demon statue. This was the return to void stage body of the deceased devil cultivator, as well as the body of countless heaven-bearing ants. Heaven-carrying great devil lord Xianxing. As soon as this doppelganger appeared, it let loose a thunderous roar. This roar was imbued with boundless violent power and a ferocious aura. Boundless blood essence power radiated from this doppelganger, and it was as if this doppelganger contained an independent universe of stars. With every wave of its hand, it was as if chaos had been split apart, and heaven and earth had been born. With every wave of its foot, it was as if the starry sky had been destroyed, and heaven and earth had been destroyed. Great Sage Lu Yuan, Great Sage Su Crocodile, and Yu Ao Dragon King's expressions darkened. This was because they discovered that this doppelganger of Wang Lin's was so powerful that it was not inferior to their true forms, which were at the unity of the stars stage. Yu Ao Dragon King, who was not known for his physical strength, was not even a match for Wang Lin's doppelganger in terms of physical strength, even if he was not injured. This terrifying physical strength that could move mountains and pluck the stars from the moon was not inferior to that of the Dao integration stage cultivator Zhuge Zhan, who had cultivated the sun refinement technique for a long period of time. His physical strength was strong enough to compete with the unity of the stars stage. What caught the attention of Yu Ao Dragon King and the others was that this doppelganger did not only possess pure physical strength. A projection of light appeared above its head, and it gradually took on a physical form. There were the 4 symbols and 8 trigrams, as well as the roars of thousands of demons from the netherworld. This was the manifestation of the great devil doppelganger's powerful martial will. At this moment, the great devil doppelganger was still in its infancy, and its martial will was only at the initial stage. Even so, it was still a shocking sight to behold. As it continued to cultivate, it would only become stronger and stronger. The great devil doppelganger landed on the ground, and the entire foreign dimension trembled slightly. The netherworld Tai Chi diagram above its head rotated, and Wang Lin returned to his human form. He sat cross-legged on the great devil doppelganger's right ear and looked at Great Sage Lu Yuan calmly. His eyes fell on the circular pattern on Great Sage Lu Yuan's forehead. Great Sage Lu Yuan, who had previously fought with Wang Lin, suddenly felt his heart skip a beat when he met Wang Lin's gaze. He felt that Wang Lin was very different from before. Not only had he obtained such a powerful martial artist doppelganger, but his real body seemed to have undergone a huge change as well. Great Sage Lu Yuan's gaze became more and more solemn as he thought about how his mirror manifestation had become more and more difficult to reflect Wang Lin's techniques. But at the same time, the anger in his heart burned even more fiercely. This great devil doppelganger should have been his. Wang Lin sat on the great devil doppelganger's right ear, while Shi Tianhao and the others sat on the left ear. The great devil doppelganger's body was incomparably huge, and even the upper part of the ear was very wide. Shi Tianhao also attracted the attention of Yuao Dragon King, Jian Songtian, and the other mighty ones. Although his body was much smaller than the great devil doppelganger, like an elephant compared to a mosquito, his small body contained extremely terrifying power. His physical body was masculine, and his qi and blood were condensed to the point that they were almost tangible. His qi and blood were like steel, and he was even stronger than when he fought with the great demons. His small body seemed to be able to hold up the sky and carry the blue dome of heaven. The great demons had extraordinary eyesight, and when they saw Shi Tianhao's appearance, they were all shocked. This kid has refined the carrying sky ant's flesh and blood essence. That's a carrying sky ant queen that has yet to cultivate into a primordial true spirit. Although she is strong, this kid's physical body is already extraordinary. Logically speaking, there shouldn't be such an obvious improvement. 1 sword, 3 demons, and 4 mighty ones were puzzled, but there was no time for them to think too much. Shi Tianhao chuckled. "Now, let's fight again." As he said that, his body flashed, and he was already in front of Great Sage Lun and the others. Wang Lin arrived at the same time as him. After entrusting Yang Qing and the others to Shalua Wonder Tree, Wang Lin and the great devil doppelganger flashed in the void, and their target was Great Sage Liyuan. The great devil doppelganger waved his hands, and his 10 fingers formed into claws. His huge body clawed at Great Sage Liyuan, and it was the great devil doppelganger of the primitive demon cult. After the primitive demon cult's cultivators reached Yuan Shun, they would cultivate the Avicii immortal body to form the Avicii demon statue, which was a powerful martial arts doppelganger. Wang Lin's great devil doppelganger had perfectly inherited the Avicii demon statue's martial arts essence. At this moment, under the push of this powerful physical body, the great devil doppelganger of the Avicii immortal body clawed out, and 10 cracks appeared in the void. Great Sage Liyuan's face was livid, and he clashed head-on with Wang Lin's great devil doppelganger. In a contest of physical strength, not only did he not gain the upper hand, he even suffered a little loss. This made him even more irritable, and he glared at Wang Lin with his ferocious tiger face. "Little bastard, you took my opportunity, but you just have a good shield, so you don't have to face my myriad mirror technique. Although this doppelganger of yours is strong, it can't do anything to me. In the future, if you offend me, I will skin you alive." As he said that, he opened his mouth and spat out a fierce white light. The white light spread in the air, like a vast sea of light, and it wrapped Wang Lin and the great devil doppelganger. Wang Lin looked at him coldly. His real body shed its human form and changed back into the netherworld Taiji diagram. As it spun, a colorful ball of light rose from the center of the Taiji diagram. It seemed real and fake at the same time, faintly discernible, but it also exuded a strong sense of power. The colorful ball of light was the first to rush out, hitting Great Sage Li. Immediately after, Wang Lin's own Emperor Yan's Hall also crashed towards Great Sage Liu. The circular pattern on Great Sage Liyuan's forehead lit up like a mirror, shining white light that covered the colorful ball of light in Emperor Yan's Hall. An identical Emperor Yan's Hall appeared in the void, but the colorful ball of light that Wang Lin had released only trembled slightly under the light of the mirror. A similarly colored ball of light also vaguely appeared in the void, but it disappeared in a flash and then disintegrated. Great Sage Liyuan's face changed. His mirror manifestation mystique was not invincible. At his current cultivation level, if the opponent's mystique and spiritual power reached a certain level, his mirror manifestation could not be reflected. But at this moment, Wang Lin's mystique and spiritual power had clearly not changed from the previous battle, and yet he could not reflect the colorful ball of light. The colorful ball of light sliced through the void soundlessly, but it was like a steel hammer that slammed into the bright and fragile surface of the mirror, shattering the white light. Even Emperor Yan's Hall, which had appeared in the white light, was shattered. In the next instant, Wang Lin's Emperor Yan's hull smashed into the head of Great Sage Liyuan, who had been caught off guard. At the same time, the Great Devil Clone also punched out fiercely, joining forces with Wang Lin's real body to attack Great Sage Liyuan's chest. Great Sage Liyuan, who had been smashed into a daze by Emperor Yan's hull, was sent flying. Fresh blood flowed, and his real body was injured. Dodging Wang Lin's next attack by a hair's breadth, Great Sage Liyuan looked at Wang Lin in disbelief. "That spiritual art of yours." Wang Lin's expression was calm as he said, "I already had an idea for this spell, but it wasn't mature enough before today. It was just a prototype. Battling you made me think through a lot of things, and now I've succeeded in one fell swoop." Great Sage Liyuan's heart sank. This spiritual art. An unprecedented sense of danger and anxiety rose in his heart. But before he could think further, Wang Lin's real body and the Great Devil Clone attacked again. This time, he was prepared, and Great Sage Liyuan would not fall for the same trick so easily. But he had already been injured, and his strength had dropped. In addition, his mirror manifestation mystique had been broken. Facing Wang Lin now, his defeat was inevitable. He took the time to look at Yuao Dragon King and the others, and despair rose in his heart. What he saw was the image of Yuao Dragon King being sent flying by Shi Tianhao. Chapter 949. Against Wang Lin, Lu Yuan Great Sage's defeat was already set in stone, and he could only hold on. If he couldn't escape, he could only fight to the death. If he couldn't turn things around, the best outcome would be to try to make Wang Lin pay as much as possible. He took some time to observe the others and found that the situation was dire. Su Anda and Sangqian Dao Jian were still evenly matched. Although Su Anda had a slight advantage, it would not be easy for him to turn this advantage into a victory. Sangqian Dao Jian had already reached the Mahayana stage in ancient times. Although he had reached a bottleneck after many years of cultivation, his strength was not inferior to any sword cultivator at the Dao integration pinnacle stage. In the past, the Grand Elder of Shu Mountain, Xie Luoshi, was not at his peak due to the instability of his sword heart. But even at his peak, Xie Luoshi was no match for Sangqian Dao Jian. The Sword of Firmament and Su Anda were locked in battle. On the other side, the battle between Zhuge Zhan and the ancestral crocodile Great Sage was more obvious. Zhuge Zhan, who had the Scorching Sun battle spear in his hand, had the upper hand against the ancestral crocodile Great Sage, who had revealed his true form. However, defeating the ancestral crocodile sage was not something that could be done in one go, especially when the ancestral crocodile sage was unable to escape. If he fought to the death, even if he could kill the ancestral crocodile sage, Zhuge Zhan would have to pay a heavy price. In the worst-case scenario, he might even perish together with his opponent. However, this was not within Zhuge Zhan's consideration. To him, anyone who dared to lay a finger on his precious daughter would not be forgiven. But at least the ancestral crocodile sage could still hold on against Zhuge Zhan. On the other side, Yuao Dragon King was in a dire situation. He was already severely injured, and now he was facing an even more ferocious Shi Tianhao. His situation was even more dire than Lu Yuan Great Sage's. Under Shi Tianhao's torrential barrage of attacks, Yuao Dragon King was already in a perilous situation. Initially, Yuao Dragon King was able to rely on the White Jade Dragon Tribe's innate mystique to hold on. Shi Tianhao had a deep understanding of the Tao of space, but he was not as good as Wang Lin in understanding the concept of the transformation between real and fake. Thus, Yuao Dragon King still had some breathing room, but he was really unlucky to the extreme. Shi Tianhao's newly acquired magical weapon, the Yellow Heaven Bell, was not good at literature, nor was it good at martial arts. It was not good at both offense and defense, but it had a unique function, which was to erase the time, space, and even the changes in reality caused by the enemy's Taoist techniques. Even though the Yellow Heaven's Bell was only a manifestation-grade magical weapon, it was still of great use to Yuao Dragon King's injuries. Although it was only a small part of Yuao Dragon King's innate skill, it was enough for Shi Tianhao to grab him by the tail and beat him up. Seeing this, Lu Yuan, who had already been forced into a corner by Wang Lin, began to feel a sense of despair. This was especially so when he saw the wondrous Shaluo tree, which was still standing motionless, calmly watching the battle unfold. The despair in his heart grew stronger. With the wondrous Shaluo tree around, not only did it mean that Xianmen Tianzong had cut off their escape route, it also meant that Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, and the others were undefeatable. Even if they were at a disadvantage or in danger, all they had to do was hide under the wondrous Shaluo tree. Liu Yuan and the others could only watch helplessly. Xianmen Tianzong, the master of the celestial gate, where did he come from? Liu Yuan was perplexed. To be able to create such a magical weapon and produce such a disciple, what kind of person is the master of the celestial gate? Can the Kunlun Dragon King and Golden Cicada defeat him? Liu Yuan was filled with regret. If he had known this would happen, he would have left immediately. He would not have bothered with Wang Lin and the others. Even if he knew about the existence of the wondrous Shaluo tree, he would not have bothered with them. Although Liu Yuan was still fuming with anger when he saw the yellow heaven's bell and the heaven-carrying great demon Lord Xianxing, his life was more important than treasures. He was having a headache trying to figure out how to escape. Yuao Dragon King and Ancestral Crocodile Sage had the same thought. They had thought that they would be able to capture a hostage, but who knew that they would end up in the hands of their enemies? At that moment, a voice rang out. Yuao, you have good intentions, but you have been too reckless this time. The voice was calm and gentle, full of wisdom. Yuao Dragon King was overjoyed. Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, and the others frowned. That voice was clearly from Golden Cicada. At the same time, another authoritative voice rang out. Yuao, Ancestral Crocodile, you have been too reckless. The voice was as high and unfathomable as the heavens themselves. It made one's heart palpitate. It was as if they could not help but kneel down and listen to its orders. Sitting on the top of the wondrous Shaluo tree, Shaluo Immortal suddenly stood up, his brows furrowed. The dark golden light that enveloped the foreign dimension rippled like water, and was finally forced to disperse and retract. Several figures separated in two directions. They broke through the void at the same time and appeared between heaven and earth. One of them was led by a handsome young monk in gray robes. It was Golden Cicada. Crouching beside him was a white tiger. Its eyes flashed with a cold and demonic light. It was the white tiger great sage. On the other side was a huge, strange snake. It had the body of a snake and the face of a human. It had 9 faces that were no different from human faces. They were cold, vicious, and terrifying. They opened their mouths and spat out thick poisonous fog and sticky black liquid. It was the Xiang Lu Great Sage. On the other side, there were 2 clouds of dragon might. One was dark green, and the other was pure gold. The dark green dragon might was vast and mighty, but it was not as majestic as the golden clouds beside it. Even tribulation demons like the White Tiger Great Sage and the Xiang Lu Great Sage felt pressured. The White Tiger Great Sage was slightly better, but the Xiang Lu Great Sage was twisting his body anxiously. As for Yuao Dragon King and Ancestral Crocodile Great Sage, they lowered their arrogant heads and submitted to the golden clouds. Even the lawless Great Sage Liu Yuan had calmed down. He looked like a king of grass, a king of the mountains, who had been recruited by the emperor of the country. In the entire foreign domain, apart from Golden Cicada, any human or demon who faced the golden auspicious clouds would feel immense pressure. Zhuge Zhan stared at the golden clouds and said in a deep voice, Tenryu Zhen or Tianlong Kuan? When the dragon clan reached the Dharma-ending realm, their bloodline would be purified. No matter which race they were originally from, they would become primordial celestial dragons. The dragon clan was different from the other demon clans. Their true names were never revealed to outsiders. Only the dragon clan and their close relatives knew about it. Every dragon would give themselves a pseudonym to communicate with others. For example, Yuao, Zihai, Qi Ting, Lu Yen, and even Bai Kong were the pseudonyms of these dragon clan experts. This was mainly because the dragon clan's true name contained a curse power and was connected to the owner's essence, qi, and spirit. If outsiders learned about it, they would be easily targeted. After reaching the Dharma-ending realm and becoming a primordial celestial dragon, the dragon clan would have a new pseudonym. According to tradition, this pseudonym was only one word. The primordial dominator, one of the 3 strongest demons in history, was Absolute Emperor Xianshang. Xianshang was his true name. His pseudonym was Absolute, so he was also known as the Absolute Beginning Dragon. The current 2 Dharma-ending realm experts of the Dragon Clan were Yuan Dragon King and Kunlun Dragon King, also known as Tenryu Zhen and Tianlong Kun. At their realm, it was no longer a problem for outsiders to know their true names. However, out of tradition, they still traveled the world with their pseudonyms and did not reveal their true names. Hearing Zhuge Zhan's question, Shi Tianhao answered calmly, Tianlong Kun. Zhuge Zhan nodded and did not speak. Although Tenryu Zhen was the strongest expert of the Dragon Clan, Tianlong Kun was also a great demon in the Dharma-ending realm. No one present could resist him. However, Zhuge Zhan was not afraid. As long as his daughter was in danger, he would fight. After Golden Cicada appeared, he looked at the golden cloud and chanted, "Greetings, Kunlun Dragon King." The golden cloud shook. "Golden Cicada, I have no intention of joining forces with you. If Yu Ao and the ancestral crocodile were not trapped here, I would not have come. Fighting with the master of the celestial gate is what I want." Although Yu Ao Dragon King was the bridge between them, the relationship between the Dragon Clan and Golden Cicada could only be considered ordinary. Silently, Golden Cicada said, "I have no intention of getting Yu Ao and the others involved. What happened here was an accident." Yu Ao Dragon King said, "Master, Grand Uncle Kunlun Dragon, I came here to share Master's burden, and also to get third brother back." Golden Cicada shook his head. "There is no need for that. With the master of the Celestial Gate's temperament, he will not take it out on your third brother. If Kunlun Dragon King and I can defeat him, Jiao Ying will be safe." Yu Ao Dragon King sighed. "I was too rash." Beneath the golden cloud, Kunlun Dragon King said, "Yu Ao, you were too stingy this time." He had come all the way here to find Lin Feng, but when he found out that Yu Ao Dragon King and the ancestral crocodile sage were trapped, he rushed to this foreign dimension. Although he sensed Golden Cicada's presence, Kunlun Dragon King still came personally. To him, it was his own people who should be saved. Being reprimanded by Kunlun Dragon King in front of everyone, especially his opponents, Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, and the others, Yu Ao Dragon King felt humiliated, but he did not resist. Instead, he lowered his head and admitted his mistake. "You are right, Grand Uncle." However, Kunlun Dragon King's next words took a turn. "Although you were rash, the disciple of the Celestial Gate's master hurt you. He must pay the price. How can anyone hurt the descendants of the Dragon Clan?" As he spoke, rays of golden light spread out from the cloud, sweeping Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, and the others into it. The Shaluo Immortal merged with the Shaluo Wondrous Tree, shrouding Shenmen Tianzong and the others. But under the pressure of Kunlun Dragon King's power, the Shaluo Wondrous Tree staggered backward. The Shaluo Wondrous Tree was immobilized by Kunlun Dragon King's demonic power, and it could no longer protect Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, and the others. Wang Lin used his arcane energy to sweep the others away, leaving only him, Shi Tianhao, the Shen-Tian God-Sealing Banner, Su Anda, and Zhuge Zhan. Seeing that Shenmen Tianzong and the others were immobilized by Kunlun Dragon King, Liyuan the Great Sage and the others felt exhilarated. All the grievances they had suffered were vented. Yu Ao Dragon King did not make a move. Lu Yuan was not a member of the dragon race, so he did not dare to act recklessly. Ancestral Crocodile Great Sage sneered as he charged towards Wang Lin and the others. At this moment, Wang Lin and the others were fully focused on resisting the pressure from the Kun Dragon King. They were like sheep waiting to be slaughtered. Ancestral Crocodile Sage swung his tail and sent Wang Lin's great demon incarnation flying backward. He sneered and said, "You want to trap us to death? You sure have a big appetite. Just now, did you ever think that this would happen?" Then he pounced at Shi Tianhao, opened his mouth and bit down, wanting to swallow Shi Tianhao alive. "Weren't you very proud of yourself when you ambushed us in the magnetic steel mine?" Chapter 950. Ancestral crocodile great sage rushed toward Shi Tianhao, but when he repelled Wang Lin's great devil doppelganger, the golden auspicious clouds in the sky suddenly shook, and the Kunlun Dragon King's voice came from within, "Ancestral crocodile, retreat." As soon as he finished speaking, the golden auspicious clouds suddenly spread out, turning the entire foreign dimension into a sea of gold. Everything in the space became still, like a specimen frozen in amber. The only one who could move was Golden Cicada, but he did not say a word at this moment. The shadow of a giant cicada appeared in the void above his head, and a deafening shrill chirp sounded. It was not resisting the Kunlun Dragon King's golden auspicious clouds, but joining forces with the Kunlun Dragon King. While everyone was shocked, they saw Luo Qinggu, who was enveloped by Wang Lin's Dharma power, appear. A dazzling golden light flashed on her forehead, and then a tall figure appeared in the foreign dimension. It was a giant who looked exactly like Lin Feng, with wide sleeves and clothes fluttering in the wind. His facial features were the same as Lin Feng's, and his clothes and skin were all composed of dazzling golden flames. A sun-like pattern appeared on his forehead, as if it was burning fiercely. His whole person was like the sun in the sky, extremely dazzling. It was Lin Feng's great son Emperor Dharma body. Facing the Kunlun Dragon King and Golden Cicada, Lin Feng naturally did not think that he could deal with them with just one or two Dharma bodies. The tall great sun Emperor Dharma body began to shrink, and at the same time, the flames gradually extinguished. Lin Feng was going to sacrifice his great son Yen Emperor Dharma body and let his main body descend here. And the Kunlun Dragon King and Golden Cicada were going to stop him. If it were any other time, the Kunlun Dragon King would be eager for Lin Feng to come and fight him. But now that Lin Feng was here, the ancestral crocodile great sage, who was attacking Shi Tianhao, would be in trouble. In the blink of an eye, the Kunlun Dragon King unleashed his demonic energy and tried to stop Lin Feng. At the same time, a golden light enveloped the ancestral crocodile great sage and tried to suck it away. As long as the ancestral crocodile great sage was stopped for a moment, the Kunlun Dragon King would be happy when Lin Feng came. However, Lin Feng had already planned to prevent the Kunlun Dragon King, Golden Cicada, and the others from coming to this foreign dimension and making things difficult for Wang Lin, Shi Tianhao, and the others. He had already prepared the sacrificial ritual. It was too late for the Kunlun Dragon King and Golden Cicada to stop him now. When Lin Feng appeared in front of the ancestral crocodile great sage in his purple robes, a look of horror finally appeared in the great sage's eyes. On the other hand, a cold grunt resounded from within the golden clouds that enveloped the entire dimension, and then the golden clouds suddenly froze. After that, the entire dimension started to shatter. His power was so great that it could destroy the heavens and the earth. The boundaries of the dimension were distorted, the earth shattered, the sky turned chaotic, and the entire dimension collapsed. Golden Cicada also unleashed his power. The White Tiger Great Sage, Xiang Lu Great Sage, and the Blue Sky Dragon King were also ready to make a move. Lin Feng's expression was calm. He put his palms together and exerted the power of the yin and yang returning to origin mystic realm, which actually stabilized the collapsing dimension. At the same time, thunder rumbled all over the sky, and a huge white figure appeared in front of everyone. It was surrounded by four-colored thunderbolts that flickered incessantly with black and white light. As its scales moved, clouds of dragon might surged. The Kunlun Dragon King, the Blue Sky Dragon King, and the Yuao Dragon King all roared in anger at the sight of this white figure. The figure that appeared in front of everyone was none other than Lin Feng's Brontosaurus doppelganger. Amidst the white thunderclouds, the Brontosaurus doppelganger roared at the sky. Thunder rumbled, and in its eyes, all things of creation and the vicissitudes of life flashed. At this moment, its powerful and huge body was constantly changing between being real and illusory. One moment, it was still a dragon body filled with majestic demonic power, and the next moment, it had turned into balls of light and shadow. It was as if it was a dharma form of the return to void that had been cultivated by a human. And in the depths of the Tai Chi diagram on the forehead of Lin Feng's real body, which could not be discovered by the outside world, There was a real spirit divine tattoo that should only be possessed by the demon clan. It shone brightly and resonated with the real spirit divine tattoo on the forehead of the Brontosaurus doppelganger. Both the real body and doppelganger used the yin and yang returning to origin mystic realm at the same time. With the real body as the main body and the doppelganger as the support, they unleashed a power that was even more powerful than the one used to immobilize the monkey. The shattered dimension under the influence of the Kunlun Dragon King's power was restored to its original state. The mysterious and vast power made the Kunlun Dragon King and Golden Cicada raise their eyebrows. When the Kunlun Dragon King shattered the dimension, he completely annihilated everything in the dimension. He destroyed both the dimension and the flow of time, causing the entire dimension to cease to exist. Under the effect of the yin and yang returning to origin mystic realm, Lin Feng did not reverse the flow of time. Instead, it used a higher level of power to forcibly reverse the shattered reality and reconstruct the dimension. This earth-shattering power isolated the Kunlun Dragon King, Golden Cicada, and the other great demons, leaving only the ancestral crocodile sage inside. At the same time, it also cut off the connection between the Kunlun Dragon King and the ancestral crocodile sage. The Kunlun Dragon King let out a long roar that reverberated in the void. A huge golden dragon that was tens of thousands of miles long appeared from the auspicious clouds. This great demon of the Dragon Clan was about to reveal his true form. The giant cicada shadow above Golden Cicada's head also gradually turned into a solid entity. Majestic demonic aura spread out, causing the dimension to rapidly decay. White Tiger Sage, Xianglu Sage, and Blue Sky Dragon King also made their moves. Together with the Kunlun Dragon King and Golden Cicada, they broke Lin Feng's yin and yang returning to origin mystic realm. However, with the yin and yang returning to origin mystic realm obstructing them, Lin Feng's true form flashed and appeared in front of the ancestral crocodile sage. His expression was calm, and his eyes turned from illusory to solid, turning into a hazy brilliance. It was the celestial pole cosmic light. The celestial pole cosmic light formed by Lin Feng's gaze locked onto the ancestral crocodile sage. The ancestral crocodile sage could not move at all. Time stopped at this moment, and his thoughts also came to a standstill. The ancestral crocodile sage was shocked. Black mist swirled around him, and stars surged. His true form and powerful demon soul exerted their full strength together, trying to break through Lin Feng's celestial pole cosmic light. Don't blame others for seeking your own death. Your time has come, said Lin Feng calmly. He straightened his right index and middle fingers like a sword, and the Heaven Punishment Sword Chi transformed into a sword radiance that flashed with chaotic brilliance. It slashed across the ancestral crocodile sage's neck, and then pierced and pricked it deeply. When the ancestral crocodile sage regained consciousness again, he was shocked to find that the last scene that appeared in his sight was his huge headless body. Black mist swirled around his body, and stars fluctuated in the black mist, but at this moment, they gradually lost their brilliance. The next moment, the ancestral crocodile sage completely lost consciousness, leaving only his huge headless body and a huge head flying into the sky. The Kunlun Dragon King did not say a word after breaking through the yin and yang returning to origin mystic realm. The huge primordial celestial dragon real body stared at Lin Feng with eyes as bright as the sun and moon. His gaze swept across the ancestral crocodile sage's corpse and Lin Feng's Brontosaurus doppelganger, and finally fixed on Lin Feng himself. Lin Feng looked at him calmly and said, Kunlun Dragon King, I've heard a lot about you. He turned his gaze to Golden Cicada and said with a faint smile, Master Golden Cicada, are you in a hurry to leave this time? Golden Cicada sighed and said, Sure enough, all the arrangements that I've made have failed to hide from Benefactor Lin's Dharma eyes. I really shouldn't have hoped for luck. Lin Feng had grasped the clues to track his whereabouts, so that Golden Cicada could not escape. Even if he hid, he would still be found. However, Golden Cicada's strength was extraordinary, and his innate magical power and Dharma cultivation were good at deceiving others' senses. Therefore, he had made all kinds of arrangements, and Lin Feng could not catch him in a short time. He and the Kunlun Dragon King rushed to this foreign space, thinking that Lin Feng would not find out so quickly. In fact, if it were not for Lin Feng's preparations, the two great demons of the Dharma-ending realm would very likely have stopped Lin Feng's true body from arriving. Of course, this was only Golden Cicada's idea. For the Kunlun Dragon King, if not for saving the ancestral crocodile great sage, he would have wished for Lin Feng's true body to come. However, since they had come to this point, Golden Cicada did not intend to escape. In just a short while, the foreign space shook again. In the endless void outside the space, a few vague figures could be seen swaying. But Lin Feng, Golden Cicada, and the Kunlun Dragon King all knew that they were the Enchantress, the Great Sage, Golden Rock Great Sage, and other peerless great demons. In addition, there was also a monkey. A large number of top experts of the demon race in the vast land of Infinite Wasteland had heard the news and gathered here. The eyes of the great demons kept moving between Lin Feng, Golden Cicada, and the Kunlun Dragon King. The White Tiger Great Sage, Blue Sky Dragon King, and Xiang Lu Great Sage were also their targets. Silently, everyone looked at the turbulent foreign space. Lin Feng's eyes also swept across the Enchantress and the other great demons. He could see through their minds very clearly. If they could surround and kill Lin Feng here, and they did not have to pay a high price, the other great demons would be more than happy to do so, except for the monkey, who was unsettled. Putting aside the feud between the human race and the demon race, and the war between the two realms that would follow, in terms of benefits, the great demons' bodies were treasures to the human race. On the other hand, to the demon race, devouring and refining the primordial spirits, flesh and blood of human cultivators, or the primordial spirits of Dharma treasures, was also a great supplement. But the demon race was also very wary of each other, afraid that others would take advantage of them. Therefore, without full confidence, they would not act rashly. The exceptions were Golden Cicada and the Kunlun Dragon King. The Enchantress and the others were undoubtedly waiting for the battle between these two and Lin Feng. Two great demons of the last day's realm, three great demons of the first tribulation stage, this kind of powerful lineup joining hands and going all out, if they were willing to pay the price, it was very likely that they would be able to destroy the Mount Shu Sword sect before the battle with Lin Feng. Even so, the Enchantress and the others did not expect Golden Cicada and the Kunlun Dragon King to defeat Lin Feng. But as long as they could force Lin Feng to use his full strength, Lin Feng would have no time to defend against the others, and the Enchantress and the others would most likely make a move. Of course, the battle situation was unpredictable. A group of great demons could also attack together and take advantage of Golden Cicada. Golden Cicada was also aware of this, but he had to take the risk this time. Otherwise, he would be forced to hide everywhere by Lin Feng in the future, and he would not be able to do anything else. The Kunlun Dragon King naturally noticed the Enchantress and the others, but he ignored them. His eyes were fixed on Lin Feng, and he said in a deep voice, "Golden Cicada, don't interfere." With a long cry, he had already rushed towards Lin Feng. In the Dharma-ending realm, the pride of a pure-blooded sky dragon made him want to fight Lin Feng personally. No matter how famous Lin Feng was, or how brilliant his achievements were, he had to fight him. Chapter 951. Golden Cicada stood in the void, his majestic demonic energy concealed. The White Tiger Great Sage and the Xiang Lu Great Sage did not make a move either. They watched coldly as the Kunlun Dragon King charged at Lin Feng. It was not that they had the idea of sitting on top of the mountain and watching the tigers fight. After personally witnessing Lin Feng's battle against the 9 Nether 10 Directions double manifestation realm and hearing about the battle between Lin Feng and the monkey, even the White Tiger Great Sage, who had his eyes on the top of his head, gave up on this idea. It was because they understood the Dragon Tribe and the Kunlun Dragon King. Although he was domineering and overbearing, he was also proud and aloof. Even if he were to fight Lin Feng to the death, the Kunlun Dragon King might not join the battle. If they stepped forward to help, the Kunlun Dragon King would most likely withdraw from the battle and watch coldly from the sidelines. He would only step forward to fight with Lin Feng after the battle between Golden Cicada and the others was over. Even the Jade Sky Dragon King, who was from his own tribe, had no intention of helping. The green auspicious cloud hovered motionlessly in the sky. The enchantress, the great sage, and the other spectators knew the Kunlun Dragon King's style very well and were somewhat helpless. To them, the proud and stubborn dragon tribe, who were not afraid of losing their strength, was the most suitable partner to be used as a weapon. But it was also because of this pride and stubbornness that gave others a headache. The enchantress looked at the Kunlun Dragon King and slowly shook his head. Tianlong Kuan, you are not a Tenryu Gen after all. But at this point, there was no point in thinking too much. Golden Cicada did not mind joining forces with others, but if the Kunlun Dragon King did not join the battle, the enchantress and the others would have to do it themselves. In this delicate situation, they had no other choice. Lin Feng looked at the Kunlun Dragon King with interest. After all, strictly speaking, this was the first real primordial celestial dragon he had seen. The ruler of the Archean epic, the Emperor of 10,000 Demons, had once been infinitely close to controlling the entire heaven primal world, becoming the supreme race of the world. Juehuang Xianshang was one of the 3 strongest great monsters in the history of the heaven primal world. He was also the first to live in this era. From the first emperor to the Grand Emperor, all the human emperors before him had died at his hands. It was only during the primordial era that the Taishu Taoist activated the Haotian mirror and worked together with the Grand Emperor to kill him. But in order to kill Juehuang Xianshang, the humans had also suffered great losses. The Grand Emperor had fallen, and the Grand Imperial Palace had almost been completely destroyed. The Taishu Taoist and the Haotian mirror had also been injured. Apart from that, there were even more human experts who had fallen at Juehuang Xianshang's hands. It wasn't just the humans. Many Yao clan experts who tried to resist the Dragon Clan's rule were killed by the Absolute Emperor. Many of the Yao clan went extinct. At the same time as the Absolute Emperor had fallen, many experts of the Dragon Clan had also fallen. The primordial Heavenly Dragon Clan had been weakened since then. After a long period of recuperation, they gradually recovered their vitality. After the fall of the Yuhuang Celestial Sea and the disappearance of the Yudu clan, the Dragon Clan became the strongest demon race in Heaven Wasteland. Although the clan master, Tenryu Gen, lived in seclusion in the Xianhai Sea, the Kunlong King was also a strong practitioner of the Last Days realm. He had attacked the Taishu Temple's foothold in Heaven Wasteland, Taihua Mountain. If it wasn't for the Haotian mirror, Taihua Mountain would have been razed to the ground. Although the Kunlong King was arrogant, after personally experiencing the magic power of Lin Feng's yin and yang return to Origin Wondrous Realm, he decisively revealed his true form and fought with Lin Feng with all his might. As the golden dragon scales opened and closed, auspicious clouds of dragon might that looked like refined gold spread out. Wherever the auspicious clouds passed, the void was destroyed, and the foreign dimension that everyone was in was on the verge of collapsing again. At that moment, Lin Feng had already swept all his disciples and Brontosaurus's clones away. He no longer protected the foreign dimension, allowing it to collapse. He opened his palm, and layers of formations flashed and gathered together. He executed the art of yin and yang life and death, one of the 6 transformations and 3 techniques, yin and yang reversal. It reversed the destructive force of the space that the Kunlong King had caused and attacked the Kunlong King instead. Golden light surged around the Kunlong King, and his head and tail flickered in and out of existence. The golden light isolated the destructive force of the space outside. When an expert made a move, it was easy to tell whether the expert was real or not. Lin Feng looked at the golden light around the Kunlong King and tried to figure out the concept within it. He couldn't help but raise his brows slightly. It's indeed the combination of many talents of the dragon race. His demon body's cultivation method is so strange. It looks similar to the heavenly demon scripture, but it's also very different. The blue sky dragon king had sharp eyes and could see many things. But the more he saw, the more confused he became. He's only at the primordial true spirit level, but his divine powers are so powerful. What's the reason? The power of the lightning is also quite outstanding. It's even better than the 8 Baron Thunder of the Dragon race and the Purple Smoke Cosmic Thunder of the Tao Wu race. The battle between the Blue Sky Dragon King and Lin Fang's Brontosaurus clone attracted the attention of all the demons. The Enchantress, the Great Sage, and the Golden Rock Sage were all staring at the Brontosaurus clone, trying to figure it out. This was especially true for the Heavenly Enchantress. Her eyes were as bright as stars, and her ethereal figure suddenly fluctuated. It was as if her demonic power was constantly changing, and a layer of faint purple light appeared on her body. The Golden Rock Sage's black and gold eyes flashed with a cold light. He was also fully focused, and the golden feathers on his body also lit up with purple light. The next moment, he closed his eyes and even retracted his divine sense. If he continued to stare at Lin Fang's Brontosaurus clone, he would be afraid that he wouldn't be able to suppress his urge to attack. The more he figured out the marvels of Lin Fang's Brontosaurus clone, the more he felt that it was as vast as the starry sky. It was mesmerizing, and he couldn't help but want to fight it to experience the true meaning of the mysterious Great Tao. Although heavenly-reaching Great Sage's scarlet eyes were full of splendor, he was more moved by the reference of the stones of other mountains. He wasn't like Heavenly Enchantress Great Sage and Golden Rock Great Sage, who possessed Yudu Minghua and cultivated demon techniques that were born from Heavenly Tao demon scriptures. The cultivation method of Lin Fang's Thunder Dragon Doppelganger was also closely related to the Heavenly Demon scripture, but it was also unique and completely different. This made the Heavenly Enchantress Great Sage and the Golden Rock Great Sage envious. However, just watching from the side was like scratching an itch. They couldn't see through many important points, so the fluctuations in their states of mind became more and more obvious. The Enchantress stared at the Brontosaurus clone that was fighting with the Blue Sky Dragon King. Slowly, she shook her head. The difference in realm and mastery of the Heavenly Tao demon scriptures allowed her to gain more than the Golden Rock Sage. However, just watching from the side was limited. Primordial true spirit realm, but he can fight with the Blue Sky Dragon King, who is one step away from completing the first calamity. The Enchantress's gaze flickered. What powerful magic arts! Other than the Blue Sky Dragon King blocking the Brontosaurus clone, Golden Cicada and the rest also made their move. The Xiang Lu Sage pounced at the miraculous Shaluo tree. The Kuan Dragon King is stubborn, but the Master of the Celestial Gate is really arrogant. Is he afraid that we won't be able to fight? The Xiang Lu Sage sneered. If that's the case, then let's suppress this artifact of yours. If I devour and refine it, I'm afraid it'll be even better than devouring a Tao integration cultivator. Although the White Tiger Sage and Golden Cicada didn't move, they were still eyeing Lin Feng. The crowd watched as Lin Feng summoned the Brontosaurus clone and the miraculous Shaluo tree to block the Luyuan Sage and the Tsangtian Dao Jian. They all shook their heads. You really got off too easy at the primordial demonic ape spirit Abyss Mountain. How could you be so complacent? The Kuan Dragon King insisted on fighting alone, but you still dared to provoke others? Since you took the initiative to give us your clone and artifact, don't blame us for not being polite. We'll take your clone and artifact and embarrass you. The other demons laughed coldly in their hearts. The Kuan Dragon King's majestic eyes were filled with coldness and anger. That was the anger that came from being looked down upon and disregarded. The Kuan Dragon King didn't say a word. His huge dragon claw swiped down at Lin Feng. It was as if he wanted to grasp the entire universe in his palm. The power contained in that terrifying giant claw was enough to crush a star. Even a galaxy formed by the convergence of many stars would be snapped in half by that claw, let alone a star. One of the primordial celestial dragons' innate divine abilities was their physical strength, which was one of the best in the entire Tianyuan continent. Other than the heaven-holding ant, the primordial divine elephant, the pure-blooded black tortoise, the Kuan Peng, and the heavenly demonic ape, the primordial divine elephant had a terrifying physical strength that no one could match. In the face of this claw, Lin Feng nodded. It's indeed extraordinary. At the same time, he opened his palm and a small seal suddenly appeared in the center of his palm. The Kuan Dragon King looked at the seal and his heart skipped a beat. Then, he heard Lin Feng chuckle and raise his hand. The seal suddenly flew up. Chapter 952. The Kunlun Dragon King insisted on a one-on-one fight, leaving Golden Cicada and the other demons helpless. The Yujing Mountain stayed in the void outside the Divine Land and did not come to Infinite Wasteland with them. Lin Feng did not plan to unseal the sky-crushing sword in advance unless it was absolutely necessary. However, these were Lin Feng's own thoughts. Golden Cicada, the Enchantress, the Great Sage, and the other demons naturally did not know about it. To the demon experts, the Yujing Mountain, the sky-crushing sword, and other supreme treasures had to be taken into consideration in order to kill Lin Feng. Therefore, based on the strength that Lin Feng had displayed so far, there was a world of difference between a one-on-one fight and a one-on-one fight. Unexpectedly, what surprised the demons was that while the Kunlun Dragon King was proud, stubborn, Lin Feng was even more arrogant, unreasonable, and arrogant than him. The Kunlun Dragon King wanted to fight alone, but Lin Feng did not seem to mind. While fighting the Kunlun Dragon King, he also summoned the Brontosaurus clone and the Salo Wonder Tree to stop the escaping Great Sage Lu Yuan and the Zhangtian Dao Jian. You want to leave so easily after making things difficult for my disciple? Aren't you being too naive? Lin Feng said calmly. I won't argue with you. Just stay where you are and don't move. When we have time later, my disciples will continue chatting with you. Great Sage Lu Yuan was shocked and angry. He saw Lin Feng's Brontosaurus clone and the Salo Wonder Tree fly out and chase after him and the Zhangtian Dao Jian respectively. However, what made Great Sage Lu Yuan happy was that the restless Great Sage Xiang Lu, the Blue Sky Dragon King, and the other demons had already taken action. They wanted to stop the Brontosaurus clone and the Salo Wonder Tree. One Kun Dragon King is not enough, and you still want to drag others into the battle. How foolish! Great Sage Lu Yuan thought. Furthermore, your actions will only anger the Kun Dragon King even more. Just as Great Sage Lu Yuan had expected, he saw the scene he wanted to see the most. The Kunlun Dragon King was indeed infuriated, and his attacks intensified as he charged towards Lin Feng. Next, however, Lin Feng took out a small seal, causing Great Sage Lu Yuan's face to fall. He didn't know what it was, but his intuition told him that it was extremely disadvantageous to him. Fortunately, that small seal was aimed at the Kunlong King. Even so, Great Sage Lu Yuan felt a chill run down his spine, and his body stiffened. Great Sage Lu Yuan wasn't the only one who felt this way. Every demon present had a bad feeling when they saw the small seal in Lin Feng's palm. Of the demons that appeared here, the lowest cultivation level was at least at the Astral Soul Fusion realm, and their sudden inspiration perception was extremely sharp. Every demon here was used to running amok, but at this moment, they all felt that something was amiss. Their intuition told them to stay as far away from that seal as possible. Even the Heavenly Enchantress Saint, the Omnipotent Saint, and Golden Cicada, who were in the same Dharma-ending realm as the Kunlun Dragon King, had a slight change in their expressions. What on earth is that? Why does it give us such a bad feeling? The monkey, who had been nonchalant since he appeared, suddenly straightened his back and frowned as he looked at the seal in Lin Feng's hand. He turned his gaze slightly and noticed that Salo Wondrous Tree and Zhangtian Dao Jian's origin spirits, Salo Xian and Jian Zhangtian, didn't seem to have any reaction. As for Lin Feng's own Brontosaurus clone, he also couldn't help but look at the seal with a hint of wariness in his eyes. It only works on us demons. The monkey scratched the back of his head. I've never seen or heard of such a thing before. What is it? Even the demons watching from afar felt that something was amiss, let alone the Kunlong King. The ominous feeling he had today was extremely rare after he entered the Dharma-ending realm. Some people would retreat in the face of unknown danger, but the Kunlong King's choice was to move forward and continue to increase his strength to crush this unknown danger. The Kunlong King continued to claw at Lin Feng as he let out a mighty dragon roar. The heavenly voice of Dragon Emperor. The Kunlong Dragon King's roar was the only sound left in the void, and that was the dragon's roar. Even Golden Cicada's chirping was suppressed and almost inaudible. The dragon's roar resounded through the heavens. Even Lu Yuan the Great Sage, Zhangtian Dao Jian, and Yu Ao Dragon King couldn't stand it. They felt as if their demon souls and origin spirits were about to be shattered by the dragon's roar. Xiang Lu the great sage was also frightened. The 7 orifices of the 9 ferocious-looking human faces were faintly red. The White Tiger Great Sage, Jade Sky Dragon King, and Golden Rock Great Sage all looked solemn. Their bodies flashed as they used their demon powers to defend themselves. Only the monkey, the enchantress, the Great Sage, and Golden Cicada were able to remain calm. This was because they weren't the real targets of the Dragon Emperor Heavenly Melody, and they were far away from the center of the battle. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to take it lightly. The Kunlong King's body shone with golden light as he attacked Lin Feng from both sides. But before the Kunlong King could activate the Dragon Emperor Heavenly Melody, Lin Feng had already raised the small seal in his hand. He flipped the seal over and aimed it at the Kunlong King. The Kunlong Dragon King's pupils constricted as he saw that the seal was engraved with an extremely strange pattern. It was hard to identify, and a ray of light shot out from the pattern and landed on his forehead. The Kunlong Dragon King's eyes widened in shock and anger. It wasn't that he didn't think of dodging, but the moment he raised the seal, Lin Feng's yin and yang returning to Origin Mystic Realm was fully activated and fixed him in place. Originally, the Kunlong Dragon King had the ability to break free from Lin Feng's yin and yang returning to Origin Mystic Realm in his true form. But the moment he was fixed in place, the ray of light from the seal was right in front of him. The Kunlong Dragon King subconsciously raised his front claw to block his forehead. The ray of light landed on the center of his claw, and a strange pattern was engraved. Immediately afterwards, the small seal that Lin Feng raised up turned into dust in midair, disappearing without a trace. But the Kunlong Dragon King wasn't happy at all, because he realized that the pattern engraved on his claw had suddenly erupted with an extremely mysterious power, and it had actually separated his demon's soul from his true form. At this moment, the Kunlong Dragon King had lost control of his true form. Originally, he could control it with ease, but now, the Kunlong Dragon King felt as if he had put on a prosthetic limb and then removed it. How is this possible? The Kunlong Dragon King's mind spun, and he came back to his senses. This feeling, it's as if someone has cut off the connection between me and Heaven Primordial World. The cultivation of the demon race was completely different from that of the human race. The path and skills of the demon race followed the heavens, seeking to merge with heaven and earth, guiding heaven and earth into one's body. In the end, they replaced heaven and earth. They were heaven and earth, and heaven and earth were them. For a great demon in the Dharma-ending realm like the Kunlong King, his connection with heaven and earth had already reached an extremely profound level. The Kunlong Dragon King was very proud, but it didn't mean that he was supercilious. Putting everything else aside, the abilities of the Yuan Dragon King in the mysterious sea were above his. Thousands of years ago, the Yudu race that ruled over the vast land of Heaven Wasteland had no lack of strong practitioners, not to mention the Yuhuang Celestial Sea. If it was said that someone could defeat him, the Kunlong Dragon King could accept it. But if it was said that someone could cut off the connection between him and the vast thousand world in his true form, the Kunlong Dragon King felt his hair stand on end. Even though he could tell that the seal in Lin Feng's hand was a one-time use item, such a treasure that he had never heard of before still made the Kunlong Dragon King's hair stand on end. Seeing the Kunlong Dragon King's demon's soul separate from his true form, Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. He thought to himself, it's still useful. Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, Wang Lin, and Shi Tianhao had achieved primordial spirit one after another. Other than giving each of them a chance to upgrade their treasures, the system also gave them special rewards when they reached half of the direct disciples under Lin Feng. The Heaven Interception Seal could cut off the connection between the target and the boundless world. The length of time it could be cut off depended on the target's cultivation realm. It was a one-time use item that couldn't be regenerated. There was also an upgraded version that could be used on the Heaven Interception sealed boundary with a large area and multiple targets. However, it was just a concept that was mentioned in the explanation of the Heaven Interception Seal. As for how to get it, Lin Feng was still thinking about it. However, he was very interested in the Heaven Interception Seal and the Heaven Interception sealed boundary. It was simply a great weapon to deal with the demon race. Of course, It could also be used to cut off the connection between human cultivators of the primordial spirit incarnation realm and heaven and earth. However, that would be too wasteful. If used to deal with the demon race, as long as the timing was right, it could definitely turn the tide of the battle. For example, the great demon of the Dharma-ending realm, the strong practitioner of the dragon race, Kunlong Dragon King, didn't feel good after taking the blow. Not only was his true form sealed, but even his other divine arts and demon power were also affected. His power was greatly reduced. The other strong practitioners of the demon race were also extremely shocked at the scene before them. They looked at Lin Feng with a little more fear. Monkey, the enchantress, and the others were very perceptive. They could naturally see the predicament that the Kunlong Dragon King was in. However, no one knew how many seals Lin Feng had. The Blue Sky Dragon King was shocked. He hurriedly forced Brontosaurus's doppelganger to retreat and rushed to the Kunlong Dragon King's side to protect him. At this moment, he couldn't care less about the Kunlong Dragon King's pride. The eyes of Monkey, the enchantress, and the great sage flickered. Both the Kunlong Dragon King's demon soul and physical body aren't damaged. He's just temporarily cut off from the connection. As time passes, he'll definitely recover, but I don't know how long it'll take. At the same time, Golden Cicada and White Tiger Great Sage attacked Lin Feng one after another. Golden Cicada and the others had also thought of what Monkey and the others had thought of. Although he was dissatisfied with the Kunlong Dragon King's arrogant behavior, Golden Cicada and he were now interdependent. Everyone could watch the show, but he couldn't sit back and watch as Lin Feng defeated him and the Kunlong Dragon King. As long as he could stall Lin Feng for a while, the Kunlong Dragon King would recover. After suffering such an inexplicable loss, the Kunlong Dragon King wouldn't be so stubborn anymore. As for whether or not Lin Feng still had the same seal, Golden Cicada could only take a gamble at this moment. He was betting on whether or not Lin Feng still had the same seal. He was also betting on whether or not his special supernatural power could avoid the Heaven Interception seal as much as possible. On the other side, White Tiger Great Sage was also proud and wouldn't allow himself to escape before the battle. Lin Feng looked at the demons charging towards him and faintly smiled. His figure flashed and he used the mysterious gate heaven step, advancing instead of retreating. He had already arrived in front of the great sage Shangliu and Shalom Wonder Tree. Chapter 953. Xiang Lu couldn't do anything to the wondrous Salo tree's defense, but he was still able to pin it down. However, at this moment, the wondrous Salo tree's radiance had also trapped Xiang Lu, preventing him from escaping. When he saw Lin Feng reveal the Heaven Interception seal, Xiang Lu's heart skipped a beat. When he saw Kunlun Dragon King being pinned down, he felt even more uneasy. Lin Feng had endless tricks up his sleeves. Although the monkey, the enchantress, the great sage, Golden Rock Sage, and other experts were surrounding him, Lin Feng's calm expression and wild fighting style all showed his full confidence. This made Xiang Lu mutter inwardly. Golden Cicada had asked him to help, and he had benefited from Golden Cicada's help. He might also be able to take advantage of Lin Feng, so he decided to help. As long as they could pin down Lin Feng, it was possible that other great demons would join in the siege. At that time, the situation would be completely different. But the current situation had exceeded his original expectations, so Xiang Lu couldn't help but think of retreating. He was not as arrogant as White Tiger Sage, and his mind was much more flexible. In particular, he had already gained some benefits from Golden Cicada. Xiang Lu also knew that if he ran away like this, he would inevitably offend Golden Cicada. But after this battle, if the master of the Celestial Sect of Wonders still had the strength to chase after Golden Cicada might not have the time to find trouble with him. Thinking of this, Xiang Lu couldn't help but want to run away. But before he could do anything, Lin Feng himself had already appeared in front of him. Xiang Lu cursed inwardly. This time, he couldn't run away even if he wanted to. Not daring to hope for a fluke, a star appeared on each of the 9 human faces' foreheads. His demon power surged, and the 9 human faces opened their mouths at the same time, spitting out thick, black, ink-like poisonous water. Wherever the poisonous water passed, the formless void seemed to have taken on a physical form and was dyed with a layer of dark black. It was a dark black that was completely different from the surrounding dark void. It was barren and desolate, and everything was withering. Lin Feng's expression did not change. With a light tap of his left hand, the primeval heaven opening technique came into play. Heaven and earth shattered, and the four images were re-established. Two auras, one clear and one turbid, separated. It was as if heaven and earth were reopened, and all living things were born. The great sage Xianglu's venom was used to destroying vitality, leaving nothing behind. But now, it was suppressed by Lin Feng's primeval sky-opening magic, and could no longer cause any trouble. In the next moment, Lin Feng's right fingertip flashed with a sword light, and the sky-destroying sword chi flew towards Xianglu. Great sage Xianglu's 9 human faces roared together. As his enormous serpent body swayed, the void was shattered. Black poisonous water spread everywhere, turning the void into a black swamp. At the same time, Golden Cicada and the White Tiger Great Sage also appeared behind Lin Feng. Golden Cicada also revealed his true form. A giant black cicada glowing with golden light appeared in front of everyone. As the cicada flapped its wings, a deafening cicada cry rang out. However, Golden Cicada's true form was different from that of other great demons. The young monk in gray did not disappear. Silently, he still sat cross-legged on the giant cicada's head. However, his hands were no longer forming a Buddhist seal, but a strange one. Golden ripples spread out from the giant cicada's body, shaking the void. Wherever they reached, the spiritual chi space and all living things in the world decayed and withered, heading towards the end of their lives. The White Tiger Great Sage also revealed his true form, but he was not very big. He was about the size of an ordinary wild tiger. His whole body was silvery white, flashing with a pale golden light, and full of a cold texture. Roar! The White Tiger Great Sage let out a tiger roar, and the galaxy in the universe fluctuated. In the dark sky, it was as if the stars in the distance had suddenly lit up. The next moment, a meteor shower smashed down toward Lin Feng. It was the White Tiger Star Fall's innate magical power. The White Tiger Great Sage was still a little far from completing the first tribulations, but now that he had revealed his true form, the power of this innate magical power was no less than that of the White Tiger Star Fall when the monkey had transformed into a white tiger. Despite being besieged, Lin Feng did not stop moving. The heaven-punishing sword chi in his right hand was still aimed at the Xianglu Great Sage. His left hand kept changing its incantation, and a large number of arrays appeared on his palm. They finally gathered together and turned into a huge array, blocking in front of Golden Cicada. Life and death, void and reality, heaven and earth, eternity and instant, yin and yang, and light and darkness, the 6 transformations unfolded at the same time. The 6 paths of life and death were born together, as if building a whole new world. At this moment, above this array, a black and white divine light suddenly lit up. Lin Feng's divine light of creation combined with the yin and yang laws of life and death, sweeping across heaven and earth, turning the world in front of everyone into a black and white scene. As far as the eye could see, there was only black and white. In that black and white sea of light, a figure stood tall like a god. Golden Cicada's expression did not change. The wings of the giant cicada's true form kept flapping, pressing down on the black and white sea of light. The cicada's cries became louder and louder. 6 transformations, 3 laws, 2 extremes return to nothing, imperial. Lin Feng's expression was even more indifferent. With a light tap of his left hand, the huge array formed by the yin and yang laws of life and death suddenly changed. He displayed the 3rd technique of the 6 transformations, 3 laws, other than 2 limitless and 2 extremes reverse, 2 extremes return to nothing. In an instant, the entire yin and yang laws of life and death began to shake. The world formed completely turned into a ball of light, expanding infinitely towards the outside world, devouring and annihilating everything it came into contact with. Even the boundaries of the boundless universe seemed to be eroded. This was the strongest technique of the 6 transformations, 3 laws, and it had never appeared before. It was not because Lin Feng did not know how to use it before, but because if he used the true yin and yang laws of life and death to display this transformation, other than the array diagram, the formation treasures such as the dark flower amethyst, the solitary dark skeleton, the illuminating stone, and the instant divine sand would all be destroyed. At this moment, Lin Feng used his own dermic powers to form the array, displaying this terrifying transformation of the array in front of the world. Although its power was slightly weaker, it still had the power to destroy heaven and earth. In particular, Lin Feng's own black and white divine light of creation was still added to the yin and yang laws of life and death. It gradually merged with the terrifying light of two extremes returned to nothing, making one's heart palpitate. Even the eyes of the monkey, the enchantress, the great sage, and the other great demons lit up when they saw it. Golden Cicada raised his eyebrows slightly and took a deep breath. His palms changed seals, and the gray-robed young monk disappeared completely. The giant cicada's true form shook violently and shattered completely. The giant black golden cicada, which was tens of thousands of feet long, suddenly shattered, turning into billions of black dots. Looking closely, each black dot was actually a tiny black cicada, and each black cicada flashed with golden light. Billions of black cicadas flapped their wings in unison, and cicada cries that were even more terrifying than before resounded through the void. An endless aura of exhaustion spread in all directions, causing all the spectators to frown. For a moment, there were only two existences left in the world: the endless light and the deafening cries of the cicadas. Both sides clashed, neither giving way. At the same time, with a thought from Lin Feng, the Salo immortal and his true form, the Salo wondrous tree, became one. The huge tree trunk suddenly shrank, and the towering tree turned into a thin branch. This branch lay on top of Lin Feng's head, and the dark golden light completely retracted, no longer radiating outwards. Only a faint layer of golden radiance was plated on the surface of the black branch, circulating ceaselessly. However, the bombardment of stars unleashed by the white tiger great sage was completely blocked by the Salo wondrous tree. Although the branch trembled incessantly and bent frequently, it did not yield an inch and blocked the meteor shower. As soon as the meteors approached the Salo wondrous tree, the void completely distorted, and the huge stars became like dots of light. When they touched the branch, they bounced off in all directions, and only when they were far away from Lin Feng and the Salo wondrous tree did they turn back into huge stars. White tiger great saint's cold pupils constricted slightly. A Mahayana-grade artifact could move on its own, and at the same time, it could unleash its full power without being controlled by others. However, if it was controlled by a Tao-fusing cultivator or a higher-level cultivator of the human race, the artifact could unleash even greater power when the cultivator and the artifact became one. Even so, with Lin Feng at his side, the Salo wondrous tree's defensive power made the white tiger great sage's heart tremble. Although Lin Feng was controlling the Salo wondrous tree, the amount of energy he could spare was limited. While controlling the Salo wondrous tree to block white tiger great sage's attack, he was also fighting golden cicada. Spirit Abyss Mountain, if you had parted ways with golden cicada after that time in the 9 Nether 10 Directions Twin Womb realm, you might have been able to live a carefree life for a few more days. Lin Feng looked at Xiang Lu great sage and said indifferently, "But this time, you've come with him and you've personally destroyed your own destiny." While the yin and yang life and death dharma blocked golden cicada and the Salo wondrous tree blocked white tiger great sage, the heaven-punishing sword Qi in Lin Feng's right hand continued to move towards Xiang Lu great sage. The chaotic and blurry sword radiance was filled with a terrifying power that could destroy all Daos and Dharma. Wherever the sword radiance passed, even Xiang Lu great sage's blackwater poison could not stop it. The huge black swamp was forcibly split open. The black poisonous water that could obliterate the vitality of all living creatures was now having its own vitality wiped out by the terrifying sword radiance. Xiang Lu great sage watched the sword radiance piercing toward him with an irresistible force. The 9 human faces roared at the same time, and black poisonous blood flowed out of their orifices. One of the human faces exploded and turned into a pool of black blood. It surged in the void, as if it could corrode and penetrate through the spatial boundaries. The pool of black blood gradually dispersed, revealing a path that seemed to lead to another world. It was a world of desolation and suffering. As far as the eye could see, there were only pitch-black swamps. There were no signs of life. Black mist hovered above the pitch-black swamps, giving off an extremely foul stench. It was the dark marsh realm where Xianglu Great Sage lived. He had sacrificed one of his heads and a star he had refined to forcibly open a temporary spatial passageway leading to the dark marsh realm. Boundless black water gushed out of the dark marsh realm, trying to protect him and guide him to escape. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. Then, Xianglu Great Sage saw Lin Feng's Brontosaurus doppelganger, who was in the process of capturing Lu Yuan, suddenly turn around after getting rid of Blue Sky Dragon King. The white draconic aura and auspicious clouds changed, and the yin and yang return to origin magical realm enveloped Xianglu Great Sage. Chapter 954. The yin and yang returning to origin magical realm enveloped Great Sage Xianglu. Under his despairing gaze, the space channel leading to the dark marsh realm, which had already been opened up, was closed again. The power of the medium-class world and the boundless black water that had been supporting him were also cut off. This was not the simple power of the heavenly realm barrier. Instead, it completely sealed Xianglu Sage, isolating him from the outside world. The mysterious and magnificent power completely confined Xianglu Sage, preventing him from using any of his magic powers. His demonic power was weakened layer by layer. Although Lin Feng's Brontosaurus doppelganger was not as strong as his real body, Xianglu Sage was not as strong as the monkey either. When Lin Feng's main body used the yin and yang return to origin wondrous realm, even the monkey couldn't escape if he didn't reveal his true form and could only be slaughtered. If White Tiger Sage or Blue Sky Dragon King were trapped by the yin and yang restoration magical realm exerted by Brontosaurus doppelganger, they would also have to show their true forms to escape. Otherwise, it would be difficult for them to do so. However, whether it was the White Tiger Great Sage or the Blue Sky Dragon King, not only were their innate talents superior, but they were also not far from completing the first tribulation. Unlike the Xianglu Great Sage, who had just started his tribulation. Therefore, being trapped by the yin and yang restoration magical realm created by Lin Feng's Brontosaurus doppelganger, even if Xianglu Sage showed his true form, he could not escape. Frozen by the power of heaven and earth, Xianglu Sage could not use any of his magic powers. He could only watch the heaven-punishing sword Qi approach him. No! The remaining 8 human faces of Xianglu Great Sage burst into despairing roars. But in the next moment, a terrifying and fierce sword light cut his enormous body into 2. Black poisonous blood flowed out of the huge wound on Xianglu Sage's body, polluting the void. The most potent venom of the Xianglu clan was its poisonous blood. In ancient times, there was a Xianglu at the Dharma-ending realm who was killed. After his death, the poisonous blood he left behind turned a corner of planet Tianhuang into a land of death. Even after a long time, it was difficult to completely remove it. The great sage Xianglu roared madly, and a large amount of poisonous blood gushed out, corroding the yin and yang returning to origin wondrous Dharma realm, trying to break out of the seal. At this moment, he had completely lost all hope of survival, and he only hoped to kill and injure Lin Feng with all his might. After the alligator great sage, the enchantress, the great sage, and the golden rock great sage frowned slightly as they saw another great demon about to die at the hands of Lin Feng. However, the 3 great demons did not move. At this point in the battle, Lin Feng was still holding back. Even if they joined the battle, they would only be adding fuel to the fire. Moreover, they could take advantage of others at any time. The Kunlun Dragon King was the proof. Not only the enchantress and the other 2 monsters, even the monkey, who didn't care about the great sage Xianglu's life and death, glanced at the Kun Dragon King from time to time. The connection between the Kunlun Dragon King and the heaven and earth was cut off by Lin Feng's heaven-severing seal. His soul was separated from his body and his true form was temporarily out of control. His cultivation was in the Dharma-ending realm, and he had the body of the primordial celestial dragon. No matter who obtained it, it would undoubtedly be a huge gain. It was so rich that anyone would take the risk for it. For the enchantress and the others, it would be best if they could surround and kill Lin Feng. But if they couldn't kill Lin Feng, taking advantage of Golden Cicada and the Kunlun Dragon King was also part of their plan. How they chose to do so depended on the specific situation and timing. The few great demons did not move, but their eyes were fixed on the battle in front of them. They were all ready to strike. At the same time that Lin Feng severely injured the great sage Xiang Lu with his sword, on the other side, Golden Cicada also went all out. The seemingly endless black cicadas turned into a boundless sea of insects and collided with Lin Feng's two extremes return to nothingness divine power, which had been enhanced by the divine light of creation. In the boundless sea of black cicadas, Golden Cicada's sigh was heard. Amidst the sigh, the sea of hundreds of millions of black cicadas suddenly changed. The black cicadas all turned into black streams of light and gathered together. It was like a real sea. But there was no vitality in this sea. It was silent and silent, as if it contained an extremely terrifying existence. The deafening chirping of the cicadas suddenly subsided, catching everyone off guard. The extreme clamor instantly turned into a deathly silence. However, the power that could cause all things to collapse and wither was even more powerful, even more frightening. The silent black sea pressed down on the sea of light, transformed by Lin Feng's two extremes, returned to nothingness divine power. The sea of light, which had been expanding and devouring everything around it and turning everything into nothingness, kept retreating in the face of the black sea. Instead, the light kept shattering in front of the black sea, turning into nothingness. Whether it was Lin Feng, who was facing the Dead Sea, or the great demons like the monkey, the enchantress, the Great Sage and the Golden Rock Great Sage, or even the Kunlun Dragon King, who was trapped in a predicament, all the experts present had a thrilling gleam in their eyes. Good! Everyone cheered in unison. Lin Feng looked at the silent ocean, his eyes shining brightly. This black ocean in front of us is formed from his demonic energy. It's a simulation of the Dead Sea Tide. Even though it's not the real Dead Sea Tide, it does look a little like it. Golden Cicada's efforts over the years have not been in vain. He has really found some clues about the Dead Sea. Although their paths were different, human cultivators and demon great sages had to work hard to improve themselves and try to pass through the three tribulations of creation. According to legend, the collapse of creation and the destruction of heaven and earth were divided into three stages. The first stage was called the initial tribulation of creation, also known as the Dharma-ending tribulation, or the 5 decrepit phases of Deva. Experts who had reached the initial tribulation were usually called the Dharma-ending realm. The second of the 3 tribulations of creation was called the intermediate tribulation of creation, also known as the collapse of the Great Path. The initial tribulation was to communicate with the Dead Sea, the most mysterious of the 7 seas of Tianyuan. Once a connection was established, a Dharma-ending tribulation would descend upon the cultivator. The intermediate tribulation was also to establish a connection with the Dead Sea. However, this time, it was not the Dharma-ending tribulation, but the Dead Sea Tide. The Dead Sea Tide was the collapse of the Great Path. Golden Cicada had revealed his true form and was going all out. He had used his trump card, the simulated Dead Sea Tide. That silent and peerlessly terrifying power overwhelmed Lin Feng's yin and yang life and death technique. If it wasn't for the divine light of creation, the two extremes returned to nothingness would have been quickly destroyed by this black sea. Even now, it was being suppressed and forced to retreat. Almsgiver Lin's escape technique is exquisite. Even the Dharma-ending tribulation can't touch you. I have no choice but to take out this immature trick and ask Almsgiver Lin to give me some pointers. Golden Cicada's calm voice came from the Black Sea. In front of them was Golden Cicada's Black Sea, and behind him was the great sage Xiang Lu's dying counterattack. Even Lin Feng raised his eyebrows slightly. Master, this trick is indeed very beautiful, but I think it must have put a great burden on you as well, right? Golden Cicada did not answer. The Black Sea surged, setting off more and more destructive waves, but there was still no sound. In this sea, it was as if everything would be annihilated and turned into nothingness. Even sound was no exception. However, Golden Cicada could not relax, because in the face of such a terrifying attack, Lin Feng did not use the mysterious heavenly escape technique. Instead, he used the yin and yang creation technique and casually set up a huge Dharma array to confront Golden Cicada's Black Sea. The Dharma array gradually collapsed, but Lin Feng's face revealed a look of satisfaction. He smiled unhurriedly and said, "Indeed, although the difference is huge, it is similar to your 9 Nether 10 Directions double manifestation realm. They are both a combination of Buddhist Dharma and Demon Dharma. This technique of yours is indeed extraordinary. However, it is not the real Dead Sea Tide, the collapse of the Great Tao." As Lin Feng spoke, he set up another yin and yang creation technique to block Golden Cicada. At the same time, he casually waved his hand, and the heaven-punishing sword Qi broke the venom that the great sage Xiang Lu's counterattack sputtered. After that, he did not continue to attack the great sage Xiang Lu. Instead, he slashed his sword at the monkey, who had been watching the battle from the outside. This move was beyond everyone's expectations. At this moment, even the enchantress, the great sage, the Kunlun Dragon King, and the Golden Rock Great Sage were shocked. What is the master of the mysterious gate thinking? Don't tell me you're really that arrogant to this extent? Although the monkey rarely appeared in Infinite Wasteland, the name of the Heart Monkey of all laws resounded like thunder. Previously, he had not revealed his true form, and his battle with Lin Feng had proven his prowess. Everyone knew that this monkey was even more powerful than the rumors said. It could even be said that among all the great demons present, if one wanted to find the strongest, the monkey was the most likely. Disregarding the Dharma-ending calamity, in terms of actual combat, he was even stronger than the Kunlun Dragon King and Golden Cicada, who were currently fighting with Lin Feng. It was understandable that Lin Feng had captured Lu Yuan the Great Sage and the Zhangtian Dao Jian, but now he had taken the initiative to provoke the monkey. This was truly incomprehensible to everyone. Even the monkey was slightly taken aback. He stared at the heaven-punishing sword Qi that was coming at him, his eyes flashing. He opened his mouth, revealing a set of white teeth, and the hair on his body gradually stood up. Golden Cicada was also a little confused. He was well aware of the relationship between him and the monkey. Not only was the monkey not on the same side as him, but they were also enemies. Although the 9-headed fierce beast Great Sage had been captured by Lin Feng, and the monkey also wanted to get back at him, he had probably come here today for Golden Cicada. If one were to ask who was most likely to help Lin Feng out of all the demons in the current situation, it would be none other than the monkey. Golden Cicada firmly believed that if he did not have the band-tightening spell as his trump card, the monkey would have already pounced on him and ganged up on Lin Feng to beat him up. Band-tightening spell. At this thought, Golden Cicada's heart suddenly skipped a beat. He seemed to have thought of something, and a bad feeling arose in his heart. Then he saw that above Lin Feng's heaven-punishing sword Qi, there were clearly a few extremely strange streams of light shining. Golden Cicada was extremely familiar with these streams of light. After seeing these streams of light, Golden Cicada's usually calm emotions finally fluctuated a little. At the same time, he called out to the White Tiger Great Sage and even the Blue Sky Dragon King, "Stop him!" The monkey's eyes were also fixed on those streams of light with mysterious auras. The corners of his mouth widened into a wild smile. Next, he also did something that surprised the heavenly enchantment Great Saint and the others. That was, in the face of Lin Feng's ruthless heaven-punishing sword Qi, he actually turned a blind eye to it. He did not dodge or evade, and did not even have any intention of defending or blocking. Chapter 955. While fighting with Golden Cicada and the others, Lin Feng slashed at the monkey with another heaven-punishing sword Qi. Only different from usual, on this heaven-punishing sword Qi, other than Lin Feng's own black and white divine light of creation, there are also a few extremely strange streams of light. The strange concepts within are unpredictable, having both a domineering and wild demonic power, but also containing the Buddhist dharma of wisdom and enlightenment. In the streams of light, there were faint shadows swaying. Under the light, an illusory world appeared, strange and distorted. On one side of this world was the peaceful and joyous Pure Land of Buddhism. Many Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Arhats, Jyeti, and Buddhist monks sat together, chanting scriptures. On the other side, a large amount of demonic chi transformed into huge demon monkeys. They roared at the sky in unison, lawless and violent. The two sides were clearly separated, but they also merged with each other, forming a world together. Half of it was the chanting of Buddhas, and the other half was the howling of thousands of demons. It was strange and unpredictable, yet profound and exquisite. However, when Golden Cicada saw this stream of light, his heart sank, because he couldn't be more familiar with this concept of power. This power was exactly the same as his 9 nether 10 directions double aspect womb realm. Although it was still very shallow and even had some errors, it was indeed from the 9 nether 10 directions double aspect womb realm. As the person most familiar with it, Golden Cicada understood the reason after thinking for a while. It must be that when he had used the 9 nether 10 directions double aspect womb realm to get rid of Lin Feng had secretly intercepted some of the scattered streams of light. Lin Feng and Golden Cicada had fought back and forth many times. He had also detained the great sage Jiuing and his Dharma doppelganger. He had already figured out some of the ways that Golden Cicada's demon body cultivated Dharma. After obtaining the fragments of the flowing light of the 9 nether 10 directions 2 aspects womb realm, he carefully pondered and indeed understood more of it. He did not have the spiritual abyss mountain, nor did he have the strange disc that Golden Cicada had used. It was certainly impossible for him to use the real 9 nether 10 directions double aspect womb realm. At this time, the streams of light he had added to his heaven-punishing sword chi were just a superficial imitation. After this sword strike, the flowing light completely dissipated, and Lin Feng might not be able to recreate this sword strike. However, this scene was enough to shock Golden Cicada and surprise the other person. Monkey stared at the stream of light. After a brief moment of shock, a smile appeared on its face. It took the initiative to stretch out its claws and pull the hair on its scalp, revealing a golden hoop. The golden circlet shook at this time and also emitted streams of flowing light. The power concept and aura in it were exactly the same as that of the 9 nether 10 directions double manifestation hidden womb realm and the flowing light on Lin Feng's heaven-punishing sword chi. Tisk, it's really the band-tightening spell? Lin Feng's lips curled into a smile. When he was studying the 9 nether 10 directions double manifestation womb realm, he felt that he had felt the same power from the monkey, but it didn't seem to come from the monkey. He had always wondered how Golden Cicada could subdue a monkey that was stronger than him. Now he had finally verified it. Golden Cicada tried to stop them, but how could Lin Feng and the monkey let him do as he wished? In the face of Lin Feng's ferocious heaven-punishing sword chi, not only did the monkey not dodge, but it rushed toward the sword light. The heaven-punishing sword chi flashed with a strange flowing light and accurately slashed the golden hoop on the monkey's forehead. The light on the golden hoop flickered violently, but it was offset by the strange flowing light on the heaven-punishing sword chi. Then, flashing with black and white divine light, the heaven-punishing sword chi with its own chaotic and blurry colors landed on the golden hoop. Endless dazzling light burst out from the golden hoop, casting an illusory light shadow in the void of the universe. The light shadow was also divided into 2 extremes. On one side was an incomparably huge Buddha, sitting cross-legged in the middle of a golden lotus. It looked like nirvana, but it had one hand pointing to the sky and the other drawing across the ground, exuding a domineering power of supremacy. On the other side was a white ape standing on its hind legs. Its eyes were azure blue and it looked ordinary, but it exuded an aura that was even more terrifying than that of the Buddha. It was in the void, but it also seemed as if it did not exist in this world. It was unfathomable. The light shadow of the demon monkey and the Buddha flashed in the void for less than a moment. However, everyone present, including Lin Feng, the enchantress, and the others, were shocked when they saw it. the light dissipated and a crisp sound reverberated in the world, as if something had broken. Finally. For a moment, only the monkey's murmurs could be heard in the void. The golden hoop that had been on his head had a nick and had broken. The monkey reached out with both of his claws and grabbed the golden hoop on his head, forcibly breaking it open, and then plucking it off his head. A sigh came from the silent ocean that Golden Cicada had transformed into. The black ocean retracted and turned back into the giant cicada. It was about to break through the void and escape. At the same time, the monkey's furious roar resounded throughout the void. Gold Cicada, where do you think you're going? His figure suddenly changed and he transformed into the blue-eyed white monkey, the supreme spiritual divine monkey. It was different from when he had fought with Lin Feng. This time, he had manifested the true form of the supreme spiritual divine monkey in the Dharma ending realm. The violent power of blood and qi reverberated in the void. When the grand spiritual king's hand was unleashed, its might could tear the world apart with the power of his physical body. With a tilt of his ear, a piece of wishful divine metal appeared in his large white claw. With a shake of his arms, the wishful divine metal transformed into a thick and ferocious pillar that could support the heavens. The monkey, who had transformed into the supreme spiritual divine monkey, waved the wishful divine metal. With an extreme agility, he had already pounced in front of Golden Cicada and struck down with the cudgel. With a single leap, the monkey shattered the void into nothingness. The violent power of this cudgel strike caused the void chaos to be unable to transform. It was unable to form something from nothingness and reenact the changes of creation. After being struck by the cudgel, Golden Cicada's true form transformed into a stream of light and trembled violently. A golden light rushed out of the giant cicada's body at an extremely fast speed and was about to disappear into the void. The giant cicada's body gradually distorted and transformed into the appearance of a cicada shedding its skin. It was Golden Cicada's golden cicada shedding shell. Without the band-tightening spell and the monkey and Lin Feng joining forces, if he did not make a prompt decision to retreat, the golden cicada shedding shell might not work. Even if Lin Feng did not join forces with the monkey to attack him, Lin Feng would feel much less pressure and would be more at ease. The enchantress and the other great demons would also not act rashly. It was completely meaningless for Golden Cicada to stay and fight with Lin Feng and the monkey. Even if he fought to the death, it would be meaningless. In fact, now that the situation had suddenly reversed, to the enchantress and the other great demons, he was probably even more attractive than Lin Feng. Therefore, Golden Cicada was not even in the mood to fight with the monkey and immediately fled. However, how could Lin Feng let him go? He stared at the golden light that was escaping and said silently, "Golden Cicada, didn't you want me to come to Infinite Mainland? Now that I'm here, do you think it's possible for you to leave without leaving anything behind?" The dermic power of the yin and yang restoration realm was unleashed once again and enveloped Golden Cicada. Golden Cicada's figure paused slightly. Before he could break through the dermic power of yin and yang restoration realm, the monkey's even more violent second strike had already landed on his head. Trapped by the yin and yang returning to origin mystic realm, it was inconvenient for Golden Cicada to cast its Golden Cicada shedding shell. At this moment, after suffering this blow, the huge black cicada was directly scattered, turning into hundreds of millions of small black cicadas. However, under the terrifying strike of the monkey, a large number of these small black cicadas died and were completely turned into ashes. A ferocious glint flashed in the monkey's eyes. He grinned and said, "Old man, you used the band-tightening spell to curse me 11 times. I won't take more from you. I'll return it to you 11 times. If you can take it, we'll call it even. If you can't, then blame yourself for not being tough enough. That was just the first strike. You still owe me 10 more strikes." Golden Cicada sighed. "In the end, your wild nature is still hard to tame." After saying this, he didn't say anything else. The black cicadas that filled the sky scattered in all directions. The monkey's strike had greatly injured his vitality, but he had also finally broken through Lin Feng's yin and yang return to origin mystic realm. However, next, the monkey swept his staff across again, covering the heavens and sweeping all the black cicadas in. The situation had taken a sudden turn for the worse. The enchantress, the great sage, Golden Rock Sage, and the other great demons felt overwhelmed. They all fell silent. The situation had changed completely beyond their expectations, and it was slipping in an increasingly unpredictable direction. That golden circlet seems to be the key to everything. Its root cause is the fusion of the extreme emperor and the founder of the human Buddhism. The enchantress stared at the monkey, who was fighting with Golden Cicada. Golden Cicada has a profound mind. He has hidden the extreme emperor's relic. No wonder he could shake up the spirit abyss mountain. Previously, the golden hoop that trapped the 10,000 Laws heart ape was simply cut off from the periphery of this disc and refined into it. Golden Rock Sage was also thinking. But judging from the look of the master of the celestial sect, he probably already had a guess. That's why he could plan before taking action, and it came in handy today. He could actually predict the Dharma Inner Ape's counterattack. For a moment, the great demons were overwhelmed with emotions. The current situation had completely exceeded their expectations. What concerned them even more was that all of this seemed to be within the purple-robed youth's plan. The enchantress, the great sage, and the others did not move. Lin Feng, on the other hand, had a leisurely expression on his face. He pointed at the Shura wondrous tree, and the dark golden light spread out. He turned from defense to offense, wrapping around White Tiger Sage, who had finally thought of retreating so that he could not escape. In the distance, Brontosaurus's doppelganger, who had already trapped Lu Yuan, opened his mouth and spewed out lightning, sealing off Tsungtian Dao Jian's escape route. But this time, no one came to stop him. White Tiger Great Sage's eyes became calm and even colder. He threw his head back and roared again, causing the stars to fall. As the bright and resplendent stars fell, their starlight dimmed rapidly, and all the power collapsed toward the center. It was filled with a destructive aura that indicated the end of the road. Besides the White Tiger's star's fall, he had activated another innate magical power of the Nirvana Death Star. White Tiger Sage leaped up, starlight floating around his body. A destructive and murderous artistic conception flowed out, showing off his sharpness. The power of his true form was completely revealed, surpassing the sharpness of countless divine weapons in the world. Chapter 956. Lin Feng shook his head with a smile as he looked at the White Tiger Great Sage, who was pouncing at him again. He pointed at the Salo wondrous tree again, and the branches, which were originally flashing with dark gold light, were suddenly plated with a layer of black and white light. The Salo wondrous tree, which was strengthened by the divine light of creation, swayed in the void. It looked small, but it once again blocked the White Tiger Great Sage's Nirvana Death Stars. At the same time, Lin Feng's heaven-punishing sword energy, which was strengthened by the divine light of creation, forced the White Tiger Great Sage back. Then he stabbed the Xiang Lu Great Sage, who was already seriously injured and kept howling in despair, with a backhand thrust. Master Golden Cicada once said that although his disciples are all great demon beasts of the unification of stars and souls, they are not strong enough to intervene in the matter between him and me, Lin Feng said casually. What he said is true, but it's not accurate enough. It's better not to intervene in my matter before I finish the first tribulation, reach the Dharma-ending realm, or have the same strength as me. The chaotic sword light exploded in the Xiang Lu Great Sage's body, tearing the huge snake body into pieces. Flesh and blood flew everywhere. Lin Feng's calm voice echoed in the black blood mist. Otherwise, you will only destroy your own destiny. As soon as he said that, the eyes of the White Tiger Great Sage and the Blue Sky Dragon King, who were guarding the Kuan Dragon King, dimmed. Lu Yuan and the Tsungtian Dao Jian, who were fighting with Lin Feng's Brontosaurus clone, were even more silent. The White Tiger Great Sage took a deep breath, and his eyes became bright again. He still pounced at Lin Feng and let out a deafening roar. In the long roar, endless astral winds howled, splitting the heaven and earth. The astral winds, which were supposed to be invisible, were now like peerless divine weapons. They had form and substance, flashing with a dazzling metallic radiance. The clouds followed the dragon, and the wind followed the tiger. The tiger's roar generated the wind. It was another innate divine ability of the White Tiger clan, the Nine Heavens Divine Wind Dark Gold Sword Energy. Refining the Nine Heavens formless astral wind and combining it with one's own demonic power, it was extremely fierce, perfectly combining the golden hepta-chi and the Nine Heavens astral wind, cutting the sky and splitting the earth. When the White Tiger Great Sage revealed his true form and unleashed his full power, the gale he created was terrifyingly swift and fierce. In terms of pure offensive power, it was even more powerful than the full-powered strike of the ancient Heavenly Dipper sword venerable from the Mount Shu sword sect. Wherever the astral wind passed, the dark void of the universe seemed to be dislocated. It was as if a picture scroll had been neatly cut into several parts and then staggered from each other. Not bad, you do have some backbone. Seeing this, Lin Feng nodded. However, after nodding, he shook his head lightly. Unfortunately, it's useless. Then, he straightened his right index and middle fingers like a sword, and a chaotic sword light streaked across the sky. Black and white divine light glittered, and the fierce wind that was shining in the sky was completely cut off. Like an indestructible divine sword, it split all the swords and sabers that were attacking him in half from the middle. Next, Lin Feng put his hands together and activated the Yin and Yang Restoration Magical Realm's magical power. It enveloped the White Tiger Great Sage, who was pouncing on him after the Nine Heavens Divine Wind Dark Gold Sword aura. When the White Tiger clan revealed their true forms, their close-quarters combat strength was also extremely strong. Although they weren't known for pure strength, their tempered bodies were outstanding regardless of whether it was attack power or defensive power, and they were good at killing. However, at this moment, he was trapped by the Yin and Yang Restoration Magical Realm performed by Lin Feng's true form. No matter how powerful the White Tiger Great Sage was, he could not break free for a while. When Lin Feng opened and closed his eyes, a mass of blurry light shrouded him. Wherever the light reached, time seemed to have completely stopped. He was already trapped by the Yin and Yang Restoration Magical Realm. Now that he was illuminated by the cosmic light of extreme celestial pole, even his thoughts and the fluctuations of his demonic power gradually became sluggish. Lin Feng casually pointed a finger, and another sky-destroying sword chi slashed down. Feeling a strong threat, White Tiger Great Sage's eyes flashed with determination. He suddenly opened his mouth, which suddenly flashed with specks of starlight. Under the cover of the Yin and Yang Restoration Magical Realm, this scene could only be seen by Lin Feng, who was fighting with him. But it also made him look surprised. This is something I didn't expect. The specks of starlight formed a light and shadow, in which stars twinkled. The stars seemed to be close at hand, but also seemed to be far away. Time and space changed unpredictably, which was unexpected. But for Lin Feng, who had been in close contact with the desolate ancient star sea through the 10 cauldron formation formed by the Void Mountain and River Cauldron and the 9 Suns and Mother Bronze Void Cauldron, he could clearly recognize what the unpredictable void of light and shadow was. It was the star sea, one of the 7 seas of Tianyuan. And it was different from the foreign space that was connected by the 10 cauldron formation. It was just an illusion of light and shadow, not a real path to the star sea. The starlight boundary that White Tiger Great Sage had revealed seemed to be a real boundary passage to the star sea. The 7 seas of heavenly origin, as the 7 most mysterious realms in the great heaven origin world, each had its own mysterious and wonderful features. Even the passages and methods to enter them were different. Among them, the boundary passages that connected the desolate ancient star sea to the outside world were not stable. Instead, they were like several unstable portals. When the portals were opened, one could enter the desolate ancient star sea. When the portals were closed, they did not exist in a fixed place. Instead, they could move with the owner of the portals, like mysterious treasures or objects. After the last war between the 2 worlds, with the fall of the Yuhuang Celestial Sea and the disappearance of the Yudu clan, The several boundary passages that led to the desolate ancient Star Sea were divided and occupied by the most powerful forces of the demon clan. However, no one had expected that the White Tiger Great Sage had secretly hidden a passage, a door. Not to mention the Divine Land, no other demon clan in the vast land of Infinite Wasteland knew about it. But this was to be expected. If he had not kept it a secret, it would have been very difficult for White Tiger Great Sage to keep this portal to the Star Sea, even though he was a great demon in the first tribulation stage. If he had not been forced into a corner by Lin Feng today, White Tiger Great Sage would not have exposed himself. If he had not been covered by the Yin and Yang origin returning magical realm, it would have been difficult for the outside world to see this scene. At this moment, White Tiger Great Sage was no less attractive to great demons like the Enchantress and the Great Sage than to Kun Dragon King and Golden Cicada. Because of his inferior strength, it would be easier for other great demons to take advantage of him. White Tiger Great Sage's eyes were extremely cold. Light flashed in his eyes, and a large amount of starlight suddenly gushed out of the Star Sea portal in his mouth. It was as if there were endless stars pouring out of it. The vast power shook the Yin and Yang origin returning magical realm, trying to break the seal. Lin Feng looked at this scene with interest. Slowly, he shook his head and said, "Interesting." He gently touched the Salo wondrous tree with his finger, and the black and white divine light of creation fell completely, blocking the starlight gushing out of White Tiger Great Sage's mouth. White Tiger Great Sage could only summon a little bit of the power of the Star Sea, which was completely different from the mighty power of the real Star Sea. Under the full suppression of Lin Feng's Salo wondrous tree, the starlight could not cause any trouble for a while. On the other side, Lin Feng's Yin and Yang origin returning magical realm's magical power fell one after another, wearing down White Tiger Great Sage's demon power. At the same time, the heaven-punishing sword Qi slashed down. Even though White Tiger Great Sage had an amazing defense after revealing his true form, he was still covered in cuts and bruises. Under such severe injuries, White Tiger Great Sage could no longer hold on. He could only shut his mouth unwillingly, and the gate of the Star Sea closed again. Lin Feng gently clapped his hands, and the Salo wondrous tree fell completely into the Yin and Yang origin returning magical realm, completely merging with it. The thin branches suddenly grew bigger, turning into a towering tree with a trunk of iron and twisted branches. The huge Salo iron tree pressed down on the seriously injured White Tiger Great Sage, rendering him unable to move. When the smoke and clouds dissipated, everyone could only see that White Tiger Great Sage, who was covered in cuts and bruises, had been captured by Lin Feng, along with the Salo wondrous tree. On the other side, Songqian Dao Jian and Lu Yuan Great Sage were also forced into a corner by Brontosaurus's doppelganger. Golden Cicada, under the pressure of the monkey, could not even take care of himself. As the monkey roared, he waved a piece of wishful divine metal in his palm, intending to overturn heaven and earth. Golden Cicada's giant cicada true body turned into millions of autumn cicadas, like an ocean. Amidst the sea of insects, a round disc flashed with layers of brilliance, barely protecting these black cicadas. Although a large number of black cicadas were swept to death by the monkey's cudgel, there were always some who escaped. Seeing the round disc, the others did not have much of a reaction, but the Great Sage's scarlet eyes suddenly burst with a strong light, eager to make a move. Golden Cicada chanted the name of Buddha in a low voice, and the round disc suddenly shattered into pieces, flying in all directions. Lin Feng stretched out his hand and caught one of the pieces in his palm. The Great Sage also gained something, but what made him unhappy was that besides Lin Feng, the Enchantress and Golden Rock Great Sage had each taken a piece. The red light in the Great Sage's eyes surged as he stared at Lin Feng, the Enchantress and Golden Rock Great Sage with a gloomy expression. On the other side, the monkey did not care. His target was Golden Cicada. With a leap, he chased after Golden Cicada. The two demons, one fleeing and the other chasing, disappeared without a trace in an instant. The monkey chased after Golden Cicada, but Lin Feng did not follow. Instead, he looked calmly at the Great Sage in the distance. The Great Sage's face was as dark as still water. His scarlet eyes flashed fiercely as he stared at Lin Feng. The demonic power all over his body was a little restless. But in the end, the demonic power around him suddenly calmed down. With a leap, he quickly chased in the direction that the monkey and golden cicada had disappeared. The heavenly enchantress Great Sage and the golden rock Great Sage fell silent as they watched the omnipotent sage leave. The situation in front of them clearly showed that wanting to surround and kill Lin Feng was already an impossible thing. Golden rock Great Sage flapped his wings and disappeared in a beam of golden light. He was also heading in the direction that the monkey and golden cicada had disappeared. Seeing this, Lin Feng smiled. Golden cicada was lucky not to die this time. He had already captured White Tiger Great Sage alive and killed Xiang Lu Great Sage. Now, only the two dragons were left. Lin Feng turned to look at the Kunlun Dragon King and the Blue Sky Dragon King. The Blue Sky Dragon King, who was guarding the Kunlun Dragon King, looked at Lin Feng, then at the enchantress, who had not left. His face darkened. Chapter 957. The Kunlun Dragon King was expressionless. His gaze swept between Lin Feng and the enchantress as well. He did not think that the enchantress had stayed behind to help him deal with Lin Feng because he was not interested in Golden Cicada. The enchantress's target was most likely him, who was currently swimming in shallow waters. Seeing that Lin Feng was looking in his direction, the Kunlun Dragon King opened and closed his eyes, which shone with divine light. Lin Feng's heaven interception seal had caught him by surprise, cutting off his connection with the great heaven primordial world. However, he was, after all, a great demon of the Dharma-ending realm. His divine sense and demonic power were both outstanding. In a short period of time, the heaven interception seal's effect had been weakening, and it was weakening faster and faster. The Kunlun Dragon King would not take long to recover. However, after watching Lin Feng fight with Golden Cicada, White Tiger Great Sage, and Xiang Lu Great Sage, the Kunlun Dragon King believed that this period of time was enough for Lin Feng to clear the obstacles created by the Blue Sky Dragon King and come to him. Moreover, the enchantress was watching from the side. After quickly analyzing the situation, the Kunlun Dragon King sent a telepathic message to the Blue Sky Dragon King. The Blue Sky Dragon King's eyes flickered. He was a decisive person. Together with the Kunlun Dragon King's demon soul, they activated all their demonic power. However, their target was not Lin Feng or the enchantress, but the Kunlun Dragon King's heavenly dragon real body. To be precise, their target was the Kunlun Dragon King's right front claw. There was a mark engraved in the center of the dragon claw. It was the mark left behind by Lin Feng's heaven interception seal. Compared to before, the mark was much fainter. There was only a faint trace left. However, this faint trace still restricted the Kunlun Dragon King, preventing him from using most of his strength. The Kunlun Dragon King made a prompt decision. He called out to the Blue Sky Dragon King and directed his majestic demonic power to his right front claw. Even though his heavenly dragon physique had lost its owner's control and was floating in the air without any consciousness, it still emitted a majestic energy, making it look extremely sturdy and indestructible. However, the Kunlun Dragon King had already made up his mind. Without holding back, he and the Jade Sky Dragon King worked together to chop off his own front claw. Losing their true form was a huge loss to the monster race. Even their monster souls would be injured. That was why the Kunlun Dragon King found it hard to make up his mind. But now that the situation had taken a turn for the worse, he had no other choice. Lin Feng saw the Kunlun Dragon King and Jade Sky Dragon King's actions and shook his head. It's too late to make a decision now. He raised his right hand high up to the sky, his index and middle fingers forming a sword. The terrifying heaven-punishing sword chi condensed, and with the tyrannical sword light as the center, rays of black light spread out in all directions. A thick blood-red pillar of chi extended from Lin Feng's fingertip and shot into the sky. It was like a blood-red heavenly pillar that pierced through the dark void. Blood-red clouds continuously churned. Countless rays of black light shone and gradually condensed into black light swords that floated around the blood-red pillar of Qi, surrounding it. Under the activation of the tens of thousands of black light swords and the blood-red pillar of Qi, billions of complicated formation patterns gradually took shape. They shone with black light and merged together to form a huge formation. In an instant, a monstrous evil aura swept through the entire void. Even the stars and galaxies dimmed. Slowly Lin Feng said, "Kill. Heaven. Sword. Formation." His voice reverberated in the void like a death knell. Just like the yin and yang life and death formation, he could even form the heaven punishing sword formation easily. Although it was slightly weaker than the original heaven punishing sword formation that was used to refine the heaven punishing sword, its power was still not to be underestimated. Especially when it was combined with Lin Feng's heaven punishing sword Qi, the sharp and murderous sword formation instantly turned into a vast expanse of black light that engulfed the world. All of Lin Feng's supernatural powers were turned into this peerless and ominous formation. His own divine light of creation was also added to this sword formation. Wherever the sword pointed, the evil aura of the entire boundless world started to condense, turning into a peerless sword that could destroy the world. Its target was the Kunlun Dragon King. Be it the Kunlun Dragon King, the Blue Sky Dragon King, or the enchantress who was watching from the side, they were all in a trance. It was as if the entire world no longer existed, and there was only a huge blood-red sword left. This sword was so huge that it seemed as if the entire world had turned into a sword. An ominous sword that could destroy the creation of the world. The earth-shattering blood-red sword edge swung down, sweeping up the light that filled the sky and shattering it. At the same time, the Kunlun Dragon King and the Blue Sky Dragon King's attacks also landed on the Kunlun Dragon King's front claws. The golden heavenly dragon blood and the essence of the great path splattered in the air, but they were soon wiped out by the blood-red sword edge and the black sword light. A long roar filled with both shock and anger resounded throughout the world. Following that, an even more dazzling golden dragon blood shot out. Then, there was a muffled groan that was slightly trembling. It was a groan of extreme pain that couldn't be produced. The heavenly mesmerizing great saint's face was blurry and expressionless, but her eyes shone brightly. When the sword light dissipated, the scene that appeared in front of her shocked even her. The Kunlun Dragon King's right front claws were severed at the wrist, and a section of his dragon tail was also chopped off. There was also a sharp sword mark on the Blue Sky Dragon King's body, and the blue dragon blood essence scattered everywhere. The Kunlun Dragon King had made up his mind to lose his right front claws. After losing his right front claws, he finally got rid of the heaven-severing seal, and he could finally regain control of his body and re-establish a connection with the creation of the boundless world. However, just when everything was restored, Lin Feng's heaven-punishing sword formation, which was formed by gathering the qi of heaven and earth, had already struck down. The Kunlun Dragon King, who hadn't fully recovered, could only barely fend off the attack. One was ready to strike, while the other was acting hastily. The gap between them was self-evident. The Kunlun Dragon King could only fly into a rage, but he could only watch helplessly as his tail was chopped off by the ferocious Tao Annihilation Sword. The sword not only chopped off the Kunlun Dragon King's tail, but it also swept the Blue Sky Dragon King into it. The poor Blue Sky Dragon King had been helping the Kunlun Dragon King with all his might, so he was also severely injured by the sword edge. The huge golden dragon tail was still trembling in the void, and the golden dragon blood that flowed out from it had already stopped flowing. The dragon tail seemed to have a life of its own, but it seemed to be suppressed by something. The Kunlun Dragon King looked at his dragon tail that had been chopped off, and his eyes were almost spitting fire. With his strength and realm, although this dragon tail was injured when it was separated from his body, he could immediately transform it into his clone if he wanted to. His clone's strength could even be above the Blue Sky Dragon King's. However, after being slashed by Lin Feng's heaven-punishing sword formation, the ferocious sword intent that could destroy everything stopped the dragon tail from transforming. The Kunlun Dragon King's dragon tail could still shake and maintain its vitality, and it was already because of the Kunlun Dragon King's powerful strength. What made the Kunlun Dragon King even more depressed was that when Lin Feng waved his hand, the mark in the center of his right front claw flashed for a moment, and his broken right front claw actually flew towards Lin Feng. After getting his right front claw back and removing the mark on it, the Kunlun Dragon King still had a chance to reattach his claw. After regaining his strength, it was very easy for the Kunlun Dragon King to remove the mark left by the Heaven Interception Seal, even though he was severely injured. Even at this moment, if Lin Feng only relied on his own magic power, he would still have the power to fight the Kunlun Dragon King who had revealed his true form. Now that his dragon claw was about to fall into the hands of Lin Feng, how could the Kunlun Dragon King not be enraged? However, at this moment, the enchantress, who had been silent all this while, finally made a move. His figure flashed, and he was already in front of the Kunlun Dragon King's dragon tail. He reached out a jade-white palm from the mist and grabbed the dragon tail. The Kunlun Dragon King roared and reached out his left front claw. The enchantress reached out his other hand and touched it. The wound on the Kunlun Dragon King's right front claw shook violently, and golden blood flowed out. On the other side, after Lin Feng grabbed the Kunlun Dragon King's broken right front claw, he also came over. The Kunlun Dragon King was helpless. A strange pattern flashed on the forehead of his true form. The pattern instantly covered his entire body, and then it shone brightly. In the light, a boundless black light flashed, but the color of the seawater was pure gold. The sea appeared in front of Lin Feng and the enchantress. Black Sea! Lin Feng and the enchantress's eyes flashed. The light covered the Kunlun Dragon King and Blue Sky Dragon King, and then they were sucked into it. Soon the light disappeared. Lin Feng raised his eyebrows slightly, turned to look at the enchantress and said lightly, "The enchantress, long time no see." The enchantress looked at Lin Feng in front of her. Her face was blurry, and her expression could not be seen. However, her flashing eyes revealed that she was not calm at the moment. Among all the demons in the vast land of Infinite Mainland, she was definitely one of the great demons who knew Lin Feng the best and paid the most attention to Lin Feng. Both parties had many interactions, fought, and even cooperated in the early years. The Heavenly Charm Great Saint was originally optimistic that Lin Feng and the celestial sect of Xianmen could stir up a lot of waves in the vast land of the Divine Land, but she did not expect that the speed of the other party's rise would be so fast that she was completely caught off guard. Today, Lin Feng and Xianmen Tianzong had become the top experts of the human race that she and the entire vast land of Infinite Mainland had to be wary of. In order to remove this threat, if the experts of Infinite Wasteland Land could not join forces and besiege him at all costs, then they could only hope for the Taishu Temple and the Xian Gate Heavenly Sect in the Divine Continent to start an all-out war. For a moment, the enchantress felt slightly regretful that she, the Great Sage, Golden Rock Great Sage, and the others did not stand by and watch. Holding the Kuan Dragon King's broken tail in her hand, the enchantress calmed herself down and smiled. "I really have to thank Sect Master Lin this time." Lin Feng looked at her calmly and slowly shook his head. Although he had just joined forces to deal with the Kuan Dragon King and the Blue Sky Dragon King, she was different from a monkey. If he had exposed any flaws previously, the enchantress would definitely not have minded joining forces with the other great demons to kill him here. Slowly, Lin Feng's lips curled into a faint smile. "You don't have to be so polite." After saying that, he pointed his finger lightly, and the Kuan Dragon King's broken tail in the enchantress's hand suddenly shook violently, as if it was about to explode. Chapter 958. Don't be so polite. As soon as Lin Feng said that, the enchantress knew something was wrong. The golden dragon tail in her hand shook violently, as if it was about to explode. It was like a massive chaos in the universe that was about to open up a new world, or a huge world that was about to be completely destroyed. It's still his sword will. The enchantress immediately realized. Previously, because of the ferocious sword will of the Heaven Punishment Sword formation, the Kunlong King's broken tail could not transform under the control of its original owner. Right now, it was also the vicious sword intent that Lin Feng left in this dragon tail. exploding out with a bang. Unlike the Kunlun Dragon King who was caught off guard and unable to react, the heavenly enchantment Great Sage was fully focused at this moment. Her spirit, chi, and spirit were at their peak. Although she had joined forces with Lin Feng to attack the Kunlun Dragon King, more than half of her attention was on Lin Feng. Lin Feng was on guard against her, so why wouldn't she be on guard against Lin Feng? However, at this moment, Lin Feng did not count on the Heaven Punishment Sword Will in the Dragon Tail to ambush the Enchantress. Instead, he wanted to use the Sword Will to completely detonate the majestic power contained in the tail, which belonged to the Kunlun King's endless accumulation of demonic power, spiritual energy, and blood essence. The Enchantress had already reached the Dharma-ending realm, so she was not afraid of the Kunlun King's full-force attack. However, right now, this Dragon Tail's essence energy wasn't held back in the slightest. It was going to explode with a suicidal stance. This power was almost equivalent to the powerful attack that the Kunlun King himself had to sacrifice his dragon tail. Even with the Enchantress's cultivation and strength, she had to be careful when facing this attack at such a close distance. If she did not want to be injured by this power, the Enchantress had to retreat and defend with all her strength. However, if she did that, she would not be able to protect the dragon tail and could only watch it explode. The Enchantress's eyes flickered. Her hazy body was faintly flashing with an unknown color, and the surface of her body was completely plated with a layer of purple light. An incomparably terrifying power shone in the silent and dark universe, shaking the entire galaxy. This was the embodiment of Yudu Dark Flower's power after it was converted by the Enchantress for his own use. The Enchantress's hands changed the spell, and his entire body became more and more hazy and illusory like smoke. The flashing purple cloud swallowed the dragon tail that was about to explode. The profound and majestic power actually forcibly stopped the dragon tail from changing. The dragon tail, which was shaking violently as if it was about to explode, actually showed signs of slowing down. Not only that, Lin Feng could clearly sense a power, and he was trying to understand the sword intent he had left in the dragon tail. The Enchantress is indeed extraordinary. As far as I know, you should have just completed your first tribulation, right? Such magic power is truly extraordinary. Lin Feng chuckled and attacked the heavenly Enchantress. If they were truly allies, he would never mind sharing the benefits. Since he had already gotten the dragon claw, it was fine for him to give up the dragon tail to the person that helped him. However, it was hard to tell if the Enchantress was friend or foe. They were only working together for temporary benefits, but they could become his enemy at any time. Lin Feng did not have the habit of funding his enemies. It was fine if it was a small thing, but if the dragon tail was obtained by the Enchantress, it would be of great help. Lin Feng also came forward to attack, and the Enchantress instantly shook her head. Giving her a quiet environment, she could suppress the agitation of the dragon tail and clear Lin Feng's sword intent so that the dragon tail wouldn't explode. However, Lin Feng obviously would not let her suppress the dragon tail. In the face of Lin Feng's attack, if she insisted on suppressing the dragon tail, the result would be that she would be surrounded by enemies from both inside and outside. The Enchantress was also a very decisive person, and she directly threw out the dragon tail. However, she was not easy to deal with. Facing the dragon tail that was about to explode, she also injected her own demonic power into it, further detonating the dragon tail. Even though Lin Feng's sword intent was only a primer, causing the dragon tail's essence energy to explode, who knows if Lin Feng would have a way to easily calm down the dragon tail's restlessness if she just gave up the dragon tail like this. Therefore, under the combined power of Lin Feng and the Enchantress, the dragon tail that the Kunlun Dragon King left behind completely exploded in the void, turning into countless demonic power, spiritual chi, and blood essence, spreading in all directions, covering this part of the universe. The majestic blood essence exploded, causing the entire void to fall into a state of chaos. The center of the explosion was completely in a state of nothingness, and it took a long time to regenerate. Lin Feng already had a dragon claw in his hand, and at this moment he was leisurely collecting the blood essence that spread out. Although a lot of it had dissipated because of the explosion, the harvest was still quite plentiful. On the other side, the enchantress also did the same thing. After collecting a part of the scattered essence, his figure disappeared in the void. Faction leader Lin, we will meet again. Take care. The enchantress, who had been tricked by Lin Feng, still sounded calm, but there was still a hint of complexity in his tone. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head. Your reaction is not slow. The enchantress immediately let go of the dragon claw and left, and Lin Feng did not chase after him. Instead, he stopped and suppressed the Kunlun Dragon King's right claw first. The mark on the dragon claw's palm had completely disappeared. Just like the tail, the dragon claw began to tremble, and the claw kept curling up. A faint golden light and a majestic blood essence flowed out of the wound, gradually condensing into a light shadow. From the looks of it, it was about to transform into the shape of a dragon. Without the suppression of the Heaven Interception Seal, the dragon claw and the dragon tail re-established a connection with the Kunlun Dragon King. As long as the Kunlun Dragon King willed it, the dragon claw could transform into his clone. However, the Kunlun Dragon King's plan was not to refine the broken claw into a clone, but to guide the right claw back to him. Of course, Lin Feng would not give him this opportunity, and he immediately suppressed the broken claw. There was a flash of light in the void, as if a path was going to be opened. The shape of the mysterious sea was faintly discernible, and the sound of the waves could be heard faintly. Lin Feng looked at this scene with a faint smile. After suppressing the broken claw with his magic power, the light shadow in front of him gradually disappeared. The mysterious sea, one of the 7 seas of Tianyuan's 7 seas, the current ancestral land of the dragon race. Lin Feng smiled. Although this Tianlong Kuan is arrogant, he still knows to leave a way out for himself. The light of the mysterious sea swept away the Kunlun Dragon King and the Blue Sky Dragon King. The mysterious power seemed ethereal, but it was actually vast and powerful. Lin Feng did not even think of using the heavenly boundary, the yin and yang returning wondrous realm, or the mysterious gate heavenly escape to stop them. The mysterious sea was truly in the hands of the dragon race. As long as the dragon race had a Dharma-ending realm expert in it, all the enemies of the dragon race that entered the mysterious sea would be suppressed by the power of the entire mysterious sea. At the same time, the mysterious sea was the only place in the 7 seas of Tianyuan's 7 seas that was completely controlled by a single force. Even if the Taishu Temple attacked it with the perfect Haotian mirror, they might not be able to break through it. In the past, when the Yuhuang Heavenly Sea ruled over the infinite wilderness, although the dragon race submitted to it, it was still far more independent than the other demon races. It was all because of the existence of the mysterious sea. Although it could not be said to be independent, it had much more autonomy than the other demon races. After seeing the mysterious sea, Lin Feng thought of the Star Ocean portal that the White Tiger Great Sage controlled. This surprise was something that Lin Feng did not expect before he came to the infinite wilderness. To be more precise, he did not expect it before the White Tiger Great Sage exposed himself. Although the formation that he set up through the Void Mountain River Cauldron and the 9 Suns and Mother Bronze Void Cauldron was close to the desolate ancient Star Ocean, it was not a real passage after all. It was not difficult to open up a temporary passage, but it was hard to say what would happen after passing through. In particular, it used to be the place where the enchantress stopped to cultivate. Who knew if the enchantress would notice? Or perhaps that is simply a trap left behind by the heavenly enchantment saint, waiting for people to jump into the pit. She may not know that it was Lin Feng who discovered and took out the alternate dimension, but if opening a temporary passage is discovered by her, then maybe there will be a grand welcome ceremony on the other side of the passage. After all, as far as Lin Feng knew, the enchantress had a real Star Ocean portal that could allow people to enter and exit the desolate ancient Star Ocean freely. Before the Middle Era, the entrance to the desolate ancient Star Sea was fixed. However, it was not in the vast land of the Divine Land, nor was it in the vast land of Infinite Region. Instead, it was in the void between the 2 worlds. But in the Great War that ended the Ancient Era, the Extreme Emperor's Divine Abyss had led the Yao race to reclaim the entrance. The Sea of Stars had changed, and the entrance had changed as well. That was why it had become what it was today. There were 6 portals in the desolate ancient star ocean, and everyone knew who they belonged to. The Enchantress had 1, the primordial devil ape race had 1, and the dragon race had 1. The whereabouts of the remaining 3 were unknown. Of course, it was now known that the White Tiger Great Sage had hidden 1. Lin Feng suspected that although the Yudu Celestial Sea had fallen and the Yudu race had hidden in that medium-sized world, as the real master of the Star Ocean back then, the Yudu race should have kept 1, leaving enough room for them to make a comeback, right? Envoy Lin Feng explored the portal of the White Tiger Great Sage and felt that it was mysterious and mysterious. He had to figure it out himself. The White Tiger Great Sage had actually just obtained the portal. Although he could draw out some starlight from the portal, he was still at the stage of exploring how to enter. In the end, before he could even warm it up, it was seized by Lin Feng. Desolate ancient star ocean, desolate ancient star ocean. Lin Feng thought to himself, this matter has many implications, so I can't be too hasty. I still need to plan. When he thought of this, he suppressed his thoughts and turned around to go to the clone of Brontosaurus. Great Sage Lu Yuan was already captured, and the Tsongtian Dao Jian still tried to resist, but he was captured and suppressed by the real body of Lin Feng. Lin Feng looked at the void in the distance, which broke apart, and a figure landed in front of him. It was the monkey, and beside the monkey was Yuao Dragon King. Chapter 959. The monkey somersaulted in front of Lin Feng and released his demonic energy. Yuao Dragon King also appeared beside him. When the Kunlun Dragon King and Lin Feng started fighting, the monkey wrapped Yuao Dragon King with his demonic energy. The Blue Sky Dragon King could only watch helplessly. What happened after that, however, left the Jade Sky Dragon King and Yuao Dragon King with lingering fear. If not for the monkey's protection, Yuao Dragon King would have been killed by the heaven-punishing sword array. The Kuan Dragon King and the Jade Sky Dragon King would not have been able to defend themselves. The Kunlun Dragon King would not be able to communicate with the Xian Sea if his soul was not reunited. He and the Blue Sky Dragon King could still survive, but they would not be able to protect Yuao Dragon King. At this moment, seeing Lin Feng, the monkey immediately said, "Master of the Celestial Gate of Wonders, I owe you a big favor this time. I thank you first and will definitely repay you in the future. It's just that my 3rd junior brother and 4th junior brother have offended you and your disciple. I still have to be thick-skinned and ask for one more favor from you." Lin Feng did not answer. He smiled and asked, "How is the old cicada?" "This old man is really slippery. He has prepared so many escape routes. You being able to help me get rid of the golden circlet was beyond my expectations. As a result, I wasn't prepared enough." The monkey grinned. "However, I hit him 3 times. Even if he doesn't die, he will be half dead. His flesh and blood will be scattered. Golden Rock and Tong Tian will have it easy." Lin Feng smiled and took out a golden alms bowl. A few cicada wings floated in the bowl. The cicada wings floated in front of the monkey. Lin Feng put away the alms bowl and said, "I can't give you this alms bowl. I still have use for it. But I can give you the cicada wings." As he spoke, he pointed with his finger. An old monk with a face full of wrinkles landed in front of the monkey. The monkey and Yuao Dragon King looked at each other. "Monk Wu Liangguang?" This old monk was one of Golden Cicada's 5 Dharma clones, Monk Wu Liangguang. He had previously been captured by Lin Feng at the 9 Serene Peak. Monkey looked at Cicada Wing and then at Monk Ba Guang. He grinned and bared his teeth. "Good, very good. With these things, it will be much easier to find that old fool." Monk Wu Liangguang's eyelids drooped and he chanted the name of Buddha. It was like a long sigh. He shook his head and didn't say anything. Yuao Dragon King looked at Wu Liangguang and sighed. He respected Golden Cicada and was thankful that he had imparted the Buddhist Taoist techniques to him. However, he had a good relationship with the monkey and it was hard to say what the grudge between them was. According to the monkey's personality, he wouldn't rest until he had finished the remaining few hits. Just like today, Golden Cicada would at most be seriously injured. But if the monkey completely blocked Golden Cicada and hit him 7 or 8 times at a time, the old cicada might really lose his life. After restraining Monk Wuliang Guang and Cicada Wing, the monkey came back to his senses and scratched the back of his head. "Ah, I owe him more and more favors." Lin Feng shook his head. "Golden Cicada and I don't get along well. Today, I'll make him pay the price. It can be considered as paying for the grudge of him kidnapping my disciple. If he doesn't take the initiative to provoke me, I won't personally cause trouble for him, but I won't make him happy either, so I'll help you one more time." With a flick of his sleeve, the 8-headed Great Sage Juing landed between him and the monkey. When the Great Sage Juing saw the monkey, he said in a low, muffled voice, "Eldest senior brother, I'm sorry for the trouble." Lin Feng said to the monkey, "It's fine to return the Juing to you." From the beginning to the end, he only listened to Golden Cicada's orders and guarded the altar for him. He didn't provoke me, so I didn't make things difficult for him. However, he resisted stubbornly, so I chopped off one of his heads as a punishment. If you want to get back at him, I'll be waiting." The monkey looked at the Great Sage Juing and said, "The master of the celestial sect helped me get rid of the golden circlet. I can't fight him." After a moment of silence, the Great Sage Juing asked, "How is master?" The monkey replied, "I hit him 3 times. I don't know which tree hole he's hiding in. Are you going to find him? I'm afraid he doesn't dare to reveal his whereabouts. But I've got some clues. Next, I'll go find him and finish off the rest of the stick." The Great Sage Juing heaved a long sigh and lowered his 8 heads to Lin Feng. "If you wanted to kill me, you could have killed me back then. I wouldn't have lived until now." Great demons like him were all violent and vengeful. But knowing that there was no hope, the Great Sage Juing had no interest in rushing to his death. He was not strong enough, and the monkey and Golden Cicada couldn't help him. He could only bow his head and give in. Lin Feng nodded and looked at the silent Yuao Dragon King. "I don't care if you're doing this for the Great Sage Juing or Golden Cicada. You're the one who provoked my disciple. After the Kunlun Dragon King immobilized my disciple, you didn't take advantage of his misfortune like the ancestral alligator. That's why your senior brother pleaded for mercy on your behalf. I can still tolerate you. However, you can be spared from the death penalty, but you must be punished. I can't just walk away like this." Beside Lin Feng stood Brontosaurus's avatar in human form. Yuao Dragon King's eyelids twitched when he saw the 2 dragon horns on Brontosaurus's head. The monkey was anxious, but he couldn't do anything. He just stood there and scratched his head. Yuao Dragon King knew that this senior brother of his was even more arrogant than the Dragon Clan. But he was always clear about his debts of gratitude and grudges. He was in a dilemma. Yuao Dragon King did not want to see the monkey in a difficult position. He sighed and lowered his proud head. "My real name is Lai Ao." For a great demon of the declining age like the Kunlun Dragon King, it was not a big deal even if his real name was known. But for Yuao Dragon King, it was still a risk. If he were to make an enemy of Xianmen Tianzong again, he would suffer. After revealing his real name, Yuao Dragon King continued, "I heard that Xianmen Tianzong has 2 Demon King-level dragons under his wing. One is an armored black dragon, and the other is a white jade dragon. I am willing to offer my dragon blood as compensation for offending your sect." He paused for a moment before adding, "Refined blood refined with the power of the true spirit divine runes and purified by starlight." Lin Feng flicked his sleeve and Shi Tianhao landed in front of him. He smiled at Yuao Dragon King. Yuao Dragon King's face darkened when he saw the smile and thought of Shi Tianhao's reputation. But he had no choice but to follow Shi Tianhao to the side. Thinking back to the scene of Shi Tianhao's Yuan Shen transforming into the furnace and purifying the essence of the holding heaven ant, Yuao Dragon King understood that other than Jieyu and White Light, this seemingly handsome but actually cruel young man in front of him, who was said to eat demons without spitting out their bones, also wanted a share of his dragon blood. What he didn't know was that Tunten, who had been swept up by Shi Tianhao's power, was also salivating. Fortunately, Lin Feng and the monkey were right in front of him. Lin Feng had already made it clear that he would let Yuao Dragon King go. Otherwise, Little Rock, whose eyes were shining brightly, might have completely drained the blood of this Dragon King of the unity of star and soul. Even so, Yuao Dragon King's face was pale and listless. After everything was done, Lin Feng looked at Monkey and said with a smile, "This is goodbye. We will meet again if fate allows it." He didn't mention a word about how he helped Monkey remove the golden circlet. Yuao Dragon King deserved his punishment. Both Lin Feng and Monkey knew that Monkey would have to return the favor in the future. A trump card in one's hand was always the greatest threat. Similarly, a favor in one's hand was the most valuable. After the monkey's power swept up Great Sage Nine-Headed Dragon and Yuao Dragon King, he cupped his fists at Lin Feng. After cupping his fists, he grinned and said, "Master of the Celestial Gate, we will meet again." With that, he somersaulted and disappeared. Lin Feng brought Shi Tianhao and the rest out of the void and returned to Infinite Wilderness, Vast Thousand Domains. Lin Feng looked to his side. Shi Tianhao was currently holding a huge bowl, smiling happily. That big bowl was full of transparent liquid, pure white and warm. In the big bowl it was like a piece of condensed beautiful jade. Compared to Yuao Dragon King's gigantic body in his true form, the amount of dragon blood in the bowl was insignificant. However, this was no ordinary dragon blood. It was Yuao Dragon King's dragon blood essence. Even though Yuao Dragon King was already at the realm of being one with the stars, releasing so much blood essence at once would cause him great damage. Looking at the bowl in front of him, Shi Tianhao was already overjoyed. After suppressing Tunten, who was jumping around, Shi Tianhao turned to look at Lin Feng. "Master, where are we going next?" Lin Feng smiled. "The Parasol Forest. A long time ago, the Phoenix Clan and the Divine Wutong Tree Clan invited me to visit them. Now that I finally have some free time and have come to the Infinite Wilderness, why don't I pay them a visit?" Shi Tianhao raised his eyebrows. "Well, Master, I heard that the Phoenix race and the Dragon race are on good terms." Lin Feng nodded his head. "It's like this. These years, if the Phoenix race and the Divine Wutong race want to enter the desolate ancient Star Ocean, they have to borrow the Star Ocean portal controlled by the Dragon race. But it's okay, just like the pride of the Dragon race, the nobility of the Phoenix race is also something that the world knows. The Dragon race's Scarlet Thunder Dragon King died in my hands. Regardless of the reason, the Dragon race will make things difficult for me. This is their nature. As for the Phoenix race, they will first see who is right and who is wrong before making a decision. This is also their nature. Moreover, although the Phoenix race has a good relationship with the Dragon race, they are definitely not the Dragon race's vassals. In fact, there are many times when the two races disagree. Whether it's the Phoenix race or the Divine Parasol race, it is actually not difficult to deal with them as long as they are reasonable. At this point, he suddenly changed the topic and swept a glance at Shi Tianhao. "So, you and Tunten cannot enter. Stay outside the forest and wait for me." Shi Tianhao's eyes widened and he cried out in grievance. "Master, I have always been very reasonable in doing things." "Yes, your reason is that if you want to eat something, you must eat it." Lin Feng chuckled and ignored his thick-skinned disciple's complaint. He looked into the distance and muttered to himself, "This trip to the Parasol Forest can verify my previous conjecture. Although I sincerely hope that I guessed wrong." You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.